Hey everybody, I don't remember how we start these anymore. It's been so long, but you're listening to a best of compilation of our podcast, Let's Take FGO. I'm one of your hosts, Omega. If you're lucky, the other host in the actual bits, but basically we're taking our really super turbo long episodes where we recap and summarize and give our opinions on story chapters, specifically Lostbelt 6, and cutting out all the stuff that's not that, and doing a second editing pass to squish them down a little. This will be related to part 1 of Lostbelt 6, the first drop. I don't know how many chapters that is, but I'm sure it will be said after the part that's no longer in the present time. But I'm, recording this bit first to anchor all the rest of the audio too, so I don't know yet. But you'll hear it in a second. There's an audio version of this on our Patreon if you like your content in MP3 format. Otherwise, thanks for watching it on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and smack the like button and leave a comment for all of our future content, and check out new episodes of our podcast ongoing, because before too long, there'll be a pre-game guide to Lostbelt 7 and then summary of that. Anyway, I will see you in the past after a musical interlude. Okay, Lostbelt 6, Act 1. Say, it's intentional for it to be in 3 acts, but 1, I think a lot of Shakespeare's plays are actually in 5-act structure. And 2, yes, it starts at the prologue. I don't actually have a lot of prologue notes.
Oh, sorry, I'm scrolling back to the action where I begin.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. So, we start with the prologue. We start with a dream and a prophecy of our favorite trap villain, Merlin. Things are obtuse as always with these things, but as with such things, it will make sense after all is said is done. Merlin talks about a lot of doom and gloom and things are going to be weirdly happening, but before he can really talk anymore, he mentions a scary lady is coming and he has to run. I genuinely wonder who that can be. Who do you think Merlin considers a scary lady?
Oh, it's gotta be Morgan.
Probably. But we move on from that, and we choose alarm sirens. As usual, Foe is with us, but he doesn't seem to be his usual self, and is very quiet and non-energetic. We don't even get a single Foe, just leaves.
Foe doesn't want any part of deal with this shit either.
So with that, though, we head to the command room, and Sion does a roll call of all the staff and their positions, which I do believe lists all the people we were able to save from OG Chaldea.
Yes,
I think a couple of these...
our first introduction of these names. Like, some of them were out before, obviously, like Munier's named, for instance, but this is the first time I think that Nasu actually sat down and was like, this is literally everybody.
Yep, so we have Munier as the pilot, Tamlin as Aquatic as operators, Octavia, Da Vinci's assistant, Chin, the vehicle commandant, Cayenne, the munitions design engineer, Elrond, the record keeper, and Marcus, the Spiritron engineer.
The names are about as ludicrous as you'd expect.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how Tomlin feels about getting those reports back from Da Vinci later.
And I do like how our official title is the Field Op Team. Pretty nice.
Yep.
So Sion breaks the news, and it's no biggie. It's just a crisis that's going to eradicate the Earth in 24 hours. Whoops. Grodolf is there as well, and I don't know if calling the bearer of bad news in Egyptian knee sock wearer is an appropriate thing to say, but I'm here for it.
She does wear knee socks.
Mm-hmm. So we find out that it's been about 3 weeks since the Heyonkyo incident. And most of our effort has been towards the South American Lostbelt. Our intended intent was to somewhat ignore the British Lostbelt because it was collapsing on itself, but not anymore. It's going to explode and take the entire Earth with it. Whoops. Big whoops indeed. So we got to loan up the storm border, which is pretty much a full-on fob at this point for an operating base with its, resources, capabilities, and all that stuff. And we got to head on over there.
Yep.
Fortunately, even though we may have 24 hours out in the real world, apparently the entire Lostbelt isn't a fucking hyperbolic time chamber, and time works differently in there. They don't ever actually mention the exact ratio, but they say it will literally not be a concern once we get inside.
Yeah, it's timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly.
Of course the British Lostbelt would be.
Hypertonic rhyme chamber.
So she mentions that all the staff are going to have to roll out, but realizes what she said and says she will not be going with us because she feels like she doesn't belong, or other reasons. I'm pretty sure it's other reasons, but we don't know yet.
Plans in danger as usual, and as we would expect, Sion refuses to leave the house. She's the ultimate shut-in.
Big Kiki energy. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to clean up things here.
Oh yeah, you got so much stuff. Well, yeah, she's studying Lostbelt 7, but remember, 24 hours outside is, plenty of time inside, so it wouldn't have actually mattered. It is just kind of interesting how she calls a literal all-hands meeting and excludes herself from it. It's interesting. I kind of feel like hopefully we're actually, when we get to Ordeal Call, we're actually going to expand more on Sion's character.
Yeah, she's been kind of a weird non-entity, if I'm going to be real.
Like, arguably, I think the captain has had more of an arc than she has, which is kind of weird.
Oh yeah, no, like his participation in India and Imaginary Sea did a lot for his character.
And obviously he's a major player in 5. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sion, not as much. Still very important. We'll be discussing the Black Barrel off and on later. That is obviously her own design, the Black Barrel copy that Mesh has. And I believe she is credited as one of the redesigners of the Ortinus system, so, she's helpful. But also, she is kind of a weird outsider. And not in the same way that the actual Wandering Sea guys are weird outsiders. Those guys are literally the ultimate shut-ins, as in, they shut themselves deeper in their weird mage base and haven't come out. World's ending? Doesn't matter.
The world's always ending. Not our problem.
Technically, I think that was Atlas's issue, was just because they're the ones about precognition and prophecy. They were just like, oh, what's that, Sion? You say the world's gonna end this year? Yeah, put it in the pile with all the other world-ending prophecies. and then presumably as the Earth was being bleached, they were like, oh no, my hubris!
But before we actually leave, we take a minute to talk about Rongo, why we want it, where it came from, and the Inner Sea, which turns out to be the mage name for the mythical paradises of legend.
Yeah, this was a good to actually clarify exactly what is meant, because, the Inner Sea of the planet has been bandied around in FGO and some other Fate works before, but this is actually, I think, one of the first times that somebody actually straight up sits down and is like, yes, so what we call that is basically the Clock Tower's term for all earthly paradises, the Garden of Eden, the Isle of Avalon, etc. And it's here that big boy stuff happens, and specifically, Rongo Miniad and Excalibur come from there, but also, Sion wants the Rongo Bongo to defeat the alien god, which is interesting.
Yeah. I find this a little weird, though, because I know not everyone, but we do have, people like Gray and Lance Artoria who are running around with Rongominium themselves. Does that not count? Not to mention whatever other servants we have with, just Doomsday level devices just on their belts.
I assume it's got to do with, the difference between our temporary summoning, which actually gets brought up as a thing we do again in this story later. It's a difference between, sending our Chaldean servants along for a ride-along to actually, having the proper mystic with us at all times. With Gray especially, there could be a concern because that's, sealed form of Rongominiad inside ad. So I don't know, is there a question of would that actually mean we get to undo all the seals, Whereas obviously the signs of Rongominiad shown by the Lostbelt 6 King, which we can clarify later is Morgan. It's not known at this point, but that's a weird one to bandy around because I'm sure chat knows that one already. But
actually,
that one she was actually able to fire from her Lostbelt through the Wall of Light, through the storm border of, the barrier of storms around Lostbelt 5, and actually hit the top of Olympus, which, by the way, is in a hole in the ocean. Just to remind everybody. So, that's a very different read than, summoning one of our servants to do something to, actually, however the hell she pulled that one off. So, there's definitely some questions here.
Some questions?
Well, technically the lances are the terminals. It is true, the actual Rongominiad is described as a nail that pins the texture of Earth in place. So, it's like a tower of light or something.
So, with that, Gordolf gets up to his usual antics and demands that we dial us back to around 30% of our usual antics. Which means we can still do some of our antics.
But he still wants us to be on our game face.
It's stuff like this that really puts into mind how Gordolf is actually a reasonable authority figure, just, a bit pompous and foolish about things sometimes. If we're gonna talk about characters, I know someone mentioned, maybe servants or something, but I think, the character who's probably actually gone the farthest for me is Gordolf. Who literally shows up as, this villain-type character, but becomes, Uncle Golf to you.
Yeah.
It's
and even though it's, all talk, there have been several conversations where he has basically said that once this is over, he's going to be willing to go to bat for us with the Clock Tower, which is a whole different thing that we already know from story is kind of complicated, as evidenced by our previous experience, which was here's a promotion, now get the fuck out of my face, we're going to sell your organization.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Gordolf, very interesting person. I also want to bring up, it is important to note that this is, I believe, where our, Gordolf talking about, being 30%, this is where our mission statements are actually clarified.
Oh, yeah.
And going in, we are told by our quote-unquote bosses that we want to figure out what's going on in this Lostbelt and meet with its king so we can figure out, negotiate a truce and perhaps get access to the Rongominiad. We do not come into this thinking that we're going to explicitly beat up this Lostbelt because their tree is already dead. Weird.
And that's the prologue, title drop. So we start with section 1, beginning. We begin with a mural and a legend/prophecy. Surprise, surprise, we had gotten knocked up and had a dream.
We'll still be taking naps.
A lot of naps.
I'm not going to let this one go. We take a lot of naps. There's less naps in this Lostbelt than in 5, but that's because we don't take a black barrel nap every time we kill a boss. But still, a lot of naps.
So, something has gone awry immediately. The storm border is non-functional and everyone has jet lag. Apparently it's more serious than that for the servants. Apparently there is no concept of proper human history here. That means that PH8 servants have no foundation to exist here. Because Da Vinci and Mash are non-standard, though, they are the exception. We gotta have exceptions to everything.
Yeah, we run into a few over the course of the story, but they pitch this as being similar to Lostbelt 3, where, because that Lostbelt basically had its own way of preserving heroes, there was no foundation for heroic spirits. This one is different, but similar.
So, in the course of speaking about this, Holmes brings about technological milestones that are needed to progress civilization, and how such cases cause people to specialize in certain things and become famous for it, creating legends and myths. And don't think I didn't see you sneaking detectives at the end there, Holmes. Be glad I can't call you out on it.
I put this in my notes as Holmes explains the civilization tech tree, basically. He explains how there is a certain amount of required order of technological process that, as you said, naturally leads to specialization, and so for anything resembling human civilization to exist, we should have hit certain foundational, technological milestones to reach, but there's not here. There's actually a great analogy where Gordolf is like, but we should be able to summon Robin Hood, right? Because he's, weird and fake. And we're just like, no.
None of that. But after that, Da Vinci basically explains what happened. Upon entering the Lostbelt, we lost all power and made an emergency landing in the Southwest Ocean. It seems that the closer to the island we get, the less the storm border functions. It's the same for the shadow border. This means that a lot...
still not fully explained, also.
Oh, it might have to do with...
Go ahead.
I assume it has to do with technology?
Yes.
Or maybe the flotsam?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it works. I was going to say this may also be related later to a concept that's brought up of the fairy domain.
Mm-hmm.
It may be possible that within the wall of light, that is actually Morgan's fairy domain, and she's just like, no.
No.
So yeah, I could see that, because we're definitely not the first thing to drift in, but it is interesting that specifically our storm border and shadow border are depressed. They are low-powered, and it is probably related to the technological advancement. But it is still interesting because, obviously, the storm border is apocryphal, for lack of a better word. It is based off technology that doesn't exist in proper human history, right? It's based off of the Nautilus submarine at its core, the Aronnax Phantasm, and then tech we scavenged from Lostbelt 5. So it should probably still work in a weird alternate future, but doesn't, for reasons.
So we gotta refer to more archaic means of communication, aka the hottest new social media function, carrier pigeons.
I love how excited Da Vinci is about pigeons, by the way. She's just like, hey, yo, Holmes, can you use carrier pigeon? And he's just like, I guess.
So, with the current supplies available in the storm border, they can last 30 days, 50 if they stretch it. This is where Gordolf gives our full command, our mission brief of what to do, and says that we need to return within 45 days. Another point in Gordolf's reasonable authority figure in this, he is willing to tighten his belt if need be, but also doesn't want things to come down to the very last minute, or the wire. I'm assuming he said 45 because he wanted enough leeway to escape without pushing too hard, but give us the most amount of time available.
Yeah, this is another moment that stuck with me with Gordolf directly. He's just like he hears that our standard is, standard is 30, 50 if we stretch, and his immediate thought is 40. No, 45.
45.
He's just, if this was still Lostbelt 1, that Gordolf would have been like, you definitely must be back in 30 days. But, this is our 6th go at this. He's like, told him 30%. You need 45 days.
Yep.
Just imagine him counting on his fingers.
So, we're about to head out, and people notice that Small Da Vinci is putting things into a rucksack, and it comes to me that she's going to go with us. We need someone to deliver the carrier pigeons, because I'm going to be real, I'm pretty sure neither I or the Master or Mash, knows how to use carrier pigeons.
Correct.
So, Da Vinci Chan has joined the party. Doo-doo-doo. So we head out in the Shadow Border to make landfall, which is basically all it can do. And we have arrived to the Isle of Britain. It's warm and foggy, and Mash, why did you just go there for a second? Weird, huh? That won't come back at all. The lack of foe has been noticed.
Yep.
Suddenly, Tristan joins the party. Doo-doo-doo. Apparently he was summoned due to the fact that he has ties to the land of Cornwall. So even if maybe they don't have direct history, no ties to land is something that is still strong enough.
And yes, they appear to have explicitly southwestern peninsula of Cornwall, which is where they talked about in the sea, so makes sense. I don't remember Cornwall being particularly foggy all the time, but it was windy and very cold.
I don't know, I always kind of think of the Isle of Britain as kind of just a gray and foggy place.
It is overcast and rainy a lot, this is true. But yeah, specifically I don't remember it being foggy in Cornwall, but even I think it was spring when we went last. This was several years ago, but even back then it was fucking windy and cold. Very rocky as well. But yes, Tristan is from the region of Cornwall, and he just kind of pops out and is like, hello!
Hello, I am here. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Someone please explain this to me. Cue explaining.
They do it a couple of times in this Lostbelt.
Yeah. Tristan basically takes off saying, he's like, I've been here before, I know where I'm going. We immediately get lost. But it might not actually be Tristan's fault. He meant just trying to lay a trail and messing it up like he's forgetting, oh shit, it's time for a battle. Enemy type here. They are very squick.
Yeah, I think the best way I describe the Moors, is what we find out what they're called later, is it's basically like we ran into the demons from Princess Mononoke. They're just kind of dark and gooey, and they're very mad. They're upset about something. Many curses.
About something. Many curses. So...
And that's our intro to the enemies of this Lostbelt. Hey, you want to fight a lot of goop demons with curses?
I hope you like goop demons.
So much goop. It's a very gooey Lostbelt.
But after the battle, the fog gets thicker and things start getting weird. If you pay attention to, like, the UI and up, you start noticing things get weird immediately. People have changed from their name to Child with the Furrowed Brow, Grieving Knight. As we continue, Mash's armaments start breaking down and she goes down. Da Vinci runs off and Tristan forgets who they are as he speaks and forget who he is. We only remember him for his red hair and we forget what we are doing and then who we are. We go down as well. Time for your second nap.
Yes. We immediately get lost in a fairy forest and take another goddamn nap. It's almost like we should have fucking known better.
A stranger appears who knows us and will help us, but not right now. They do warn us to not let anyone know that we are human, though.
Too bad they warned us while we were fucking passed out.
So, we wake up in an unfamiliar room with a new girl that looks real familiar. Clearly, this is Mash. They have lost their memories too. I, apparently, am Lysander. It was on my name tag, which is a leaf for some reason. For context, if you don't know, Lysander is one of the 4 main characters in A Midsummer's Night Dream. One of the humans that fell under the effect of a love potion and fell in love with someone who is not their love.
Yes, I believe if you are the female master at this point, the name is Hermia, which is another Midsummer Night character. Basically.
I didn't think about that, but yes.
Yeah, it's a reference.
Apparently, we are in the Nameless Woods, which has fog so thick you can't escape it, and it will rob you of your memories. One of the most dangerous places in all of Britain, and that's where we decided to start this journey. Good job, us.
At least we have the excuse that all our senses were broken, but damn, we're bad at this.
We are bad at this. But we wake up, and who is this red-haired archer with us? He serves us, though, and is willing to die to keep us safe. Sounds legit. Doesn't matter. Best friends now. High five.
Yeah, this I put in my notes is the Knights of the Round are truly on a different level. Tristan remembers literally nothing, and he's just like, I would lay my life down for this person, by the way.
Like,
I know it, just by looking at their face.
Thanks to Stolt Best in Class, as that's what he named himself. Along with several other things, shows that even if you erase their memory, you can't embrace what kind of person they are. Luckily, they have a name tag as well, and are Tristan, written in Old English. Mash doesn't understand.
Also, by the way, I have mentioned before about how Celtic names work. That is one of the possible spellings of Tristan, is Tristam. There's also Dunstan or Drystan. You can sometimes spell it with a D. It's wild. Celtic languages are weird.
Okay. So, as we're wondering about what we're doing if these fairies are slave trading, As we wonder about what we're doing and if these fairies are slave trading or already hinting at oppression in this world, we meet a new face, a wing girl that wants us to meet the others. Here's another sign of something wrong. While her clothes look okay, her face has a scar, and her wings are tattered, and she speaks about how people scold her for being useless. These are clearly signs of abuse and or neglect. But we go on out, we go to meet everyone. Oh no, it looks like these fairies are going to eat us. But nay, they're actually super friendly and helpful. What a twist! Apparently this is a village of outcasts for outcasts. But enough about that, it is time to party. But amidst the fisting, it is time for lore. So we have 6 different clans here. We have the Wind Clan, which are basically elves. The Earth Clan, basically fucking dwarves. The Fang Clan, who are wolf people. The Mirror Clan, who are missing/extinct. The Wing Clan, who is mysterious. The King Clan, that is only one person, but is someone that apparently MASH has a lot to say about. I bet they're frenemies, like, Salter Jalter. Tristan is concerned about the Fae folk and how they can rip us to shreds, but MASH is like, that's not how we work. Followed by ominous prayers outside asking forgiveness.
Again, talking about how the fog apparently just strips away your memories of yourself. Even down his memories of who he is and what the fuck he was doing, Tristan is like, yo, dog, we don't trust fairies. This is lesson numero uno Tristan teaches you, and you should remember it. We don't trust fairies. Also, yeah, somebody in chat asked, I assume because he names you after a character from Midsummer's Night, Oberon had to be responsible for the name tags.
Probably.
It is interesting to know, by the way, Chad, because we named out the clans and stuff here, but that while the Wind Clan and the Wing Clan are separate, the Wind Clan do still sometimes have wings, despite their elvishness. So there is some back and forth there. I think at one point, where we are mistaken for Wind Clan fairies who have lost their wings.
Yes, they talk about how they think our wings have been ripped off or something.
Yeah,
into that. So. Next morning, it's the unknown wing girl who wants to show us around. She talks about the areas. You talk to a few inhabitants. They seem to really, really like us. Apparently, our aura is really nice. Afterward, MASH decides that we need to go test our skills out in the forest, and seems a little trigger happy, it seems, but after the battle seems to regret her actions immediately. We are not strong boys.
Would you say that she offers us
a test of your reflexes?
I wasn't expecting it.
The soundboard is based.
It is based. So there's something called an annual existence tax, and that sounds like a fucking thing. Also, command seals exist here, and having them is a banned thing. We don't get any more context on that, though. The Nameless Wind Girl continues to be abused, and you start to see the cracks in the mirror and how they treat nameless fairies. Nameless fairies are those that have lost their purpose and their name and are doomed to wither away and die. But enough about that, check out the latest new fad, a fucking handshake. To not let things lie, we try to help out how we can. MASH can apparently use magecraft. Same as the Queen, but not sacrament. Magecraft is something that MASH taught herself, and it may seem that MASH remembers more than she lets on. On things that went weird really quick, fairies don't need to eat, so the fact that we got hungry gives us away. They found out that we are human, and the village is ecstatic and touchy, and immediately lock us up to keep us safe. We are locked up with Tristan and MASH, but MASH doesn't know if they are a fairy or not. Apparently, humans are needed by fairies as a sort of mental aid, but are regulated by the Queen. Things go immediately from bad to worse, as some of the fairies cannot contain their emotions over the human and want to do everything to us, from feeding us and combing our hair to skinning us and chopping us into pieces. And when Doga, the friendly fan-can guy that we met earlier, we had a rousing game of ball earlier, speaks up about maybe not doing that, he has his head ripped off. It immediately devolves into a bloody fight between the fairies. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, can I get some F's in chat for Doga? But also, yes, in that note, I feel like it's a good part to insert one of my notes. I feel like our watchword for this Lostbelt, or our keynote phrase for themes will be, and then it got worse.
Yeah!
Because that happened several times. We're just minding our own business, and then we're just like, and then it got worse.
I think this is like, I talked about this earlier in the mailbag, but I think this is a good representation of the fairies here. They don't think or act like humans. Their love is heavy, and they don't like others getting in the way of what they want.
Even when they get logical, some of them are still suspect to it, and, there's also some real fucked up shit in their logic. At one point, when it looks like the Earth Clan is on top, the Chief Earth Clan guy, who was very friendly to us before, is like, we should break their legs first so they can't run away. And we're just like, damn, that's stone cold. It's creepy fine.
Yeah.
Also, it's, again, talking about fairy stuff, it's explained earlier that the Wind Clan and the Earth Clan have kind of a rivalry, and that once again gets thrown full force out here. They mention at this point that our Wind Clan friend, the elf guy, used to be an attendant for somebody named Aurora that will come back later, and that's why he's so reasonable and dignified. Also makes me wonder later what the fuck he did to fuck up, but, there's a lot of room for fucking up with the fairies.
Apparently. So, we do escape with the help of the Wing Girl, but Tristan has to strum his heart for some odd reason, making it into a chase.
He just remembers that's his thing. Kanashi.
Like, oh! We manage to escape our pursuers, but with one last twist of the knife, the Wing Girl collapses, and when she tries to help, screams her frustrations at us before turning into a Moor, one of the things that attacked us earlier. She says that she was just leading us away so she could have her herself, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, I like you said, she just screams her frustration. It feels like it's just her boiling point of like, we already knew things were going to go badly from the way that our visit with her little camp went, but then it turns around as like this breaking point of like when we turn back and show her concern, she like can't take it.
Well, because apparently she's been, if I remember this, apparently she's been suffering this abuse for like over 100 years, and we mentioned, things getting even more bitter. She apparently started turning into a Moors, like, after Mash left her before. And so she laments that after all this time, it's only right at the very end that people start showing her kindness, and it's...
Yeah, like I said,
very sad.
That seems to be the break point there, is, like, we hit this moment of, like, the ultimate frustration where she already knows she's fucking doomed, but for some reason now we show her this moment of kindness. This is also, I think, very thematic of, like, there's a lot of people, we'll get into this more in detail, but in this Lostbelt, there's a lot of characters who are just sitting around waiting to be saved, and there's also a very pervasive feeling that for some people or places, it's just too goddamn late. The time just doesn't line up, Mm-hmm. And so this is kind of like, I mean, as you'd expect, Nasu has written some pretty heavy openers. He wrote, the Fuyuki chapter of FGO, for instance, which has a lot of hard hitters to suck you in. This is a very heavy-hitting intro to, like, slurp you in, and definitely sets up a lot of the thematic stakes. Yes, Chad, it's very sad.
It's very sad.
This is also, I think, why in my mind the Moors are very Ghibli demon-esque, because of kind of, like, where they come from, when they're it's when fairies are either cursed by physical contact, as we find out later, or they are overcome with their despair and dark emotions, and they just go full blarg.
Go full blarg.
The big goop.
We do battle, but don't finish her off. And with a thrust like the wind, someone swoops in to finish her off. It's Oberon, the Fairy King. Ta-da! Oh, I should have looked up the name of the character designer, because they're a mangaka they're the one who wrote March Comes In Like a Lion. It's a very, very noticeable art style. I can't remember her name to save my life.
Chika Umino.
Yes. Funny thing about this is she actually has a fear of insects, and drawing Oberon was a bit of a trial for her.
Yeah.
Him calling us our name is enough to jog our memory and let us remember everything. Not Mash is confused by Oberon, thinking that they were Merlin.
I can understand why you would get these two confused.
Yes, I do too. It's actually a little weird.
Especially when we get to Oberon stealth mode later. All he needs is a hood.
So not Mash
Foe would beat up Oberon too?
Probably. I had to think about that, and I'm like, wait, no, yeah, I can see it. I can see it happening.
His ankles.
Something like that, yeah. I think that'll be everything.
I believe, and it's a little bit of a sad story, but I believe that Umino was given an art book of fairies by the late mangaka of Berserk, and was recommended a specific book that he used, and that is where a lot of the initial design for Oberon came together. I believe there was a recent social media post that was recirculating. She actually really wanted to show like Oberon's final designs to him, but unfortunately he did pass away before Banner fully took off. So it's a little sad, but yeah, there's a lot of great mentorship going on there. I'm also interested in whatever book where the basis was there for those tips, because damn, there's a lot of good fairy work in the Lostbelt, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So not Mash is actually Artoria Caster, but Caster is just the name of the village she is from.
Yeah, that one I'm actually... Chat, you can double check for me. I don't want to disbelieve Lucky, because obviously, like I said, I'm pretty sure he literally transliterated it from the page, but how I remember that dialogue going was she said that Caster is what they called her in the village. Because later they say she's from Tintagel, but that is technically the name of an island. So I'm not actually sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it. I'm not sure.
Either way, it's kind of, okay, so Caster is, people are saying Caster is what they called her. Yeah, that was her name in the village. But no matter what, it's weird. Robin saying Caster was her family name. That doesn't make any sense. That's even more confusing, Robin. Yeah, no matter what, it is still just like,
That's a little weirder. But we have a CG at the end here, showing us as we look over the beautiful British countryside, except there's the broken remains of a tree of emptiness, which is quite stark. Map unlocked.
Yeah, what my first thought when I saw this with, like, the broken tree kind of heaped like a giant crystal in the background, I was just like, this is a Final Fantasy. Like, just this big sweeping shot, and there's, like, this big, rocky blob. They say later it's the tree, but I was like, this is very crystalline, it's very sharp edges, Looks very different than how previous trees are handled, obviously. It's like a job, baker, fisher, caster. I mean, that is kind of how all of the names for everybody but assassin are formulated in Fate. If assassin had a name like that, their class name would probably be Killer. Kira.
Well, yeah, no, they say Artoria Caster. Like, I could have swore, like, I could be wrong, but I could have swore.
That's why I said I don't want to say you're wrong, because, like I said, I'm sure you literally typed what they said in the text box. But okay, yeah.
I mean, I'll double check again because now I'm weird. So honestly, like with the first section done, I kind of feel like this whole entire section was just kind of a tutorial for what is about to happen. I think we ran into some trouble. We met some nice fairies. Oh no, bad shit's gonna happen, and then we have to, move on. I feel like the story is just gonna be a lot of ups and downs like that.
Yeah, I said this in not quite so many words earlier, but yes, it is definitely setting the strong tone for what this Lostbelt will be like thematically. There'll be these moments where you think everything is normal and fine, and then it's like, oh, suddenly it's not fine because that's just how fairies are.
Also, I don't know when this actually shows up, but on the map screen, there is a notes section that has the Lostbelt timeline, which is hella neat in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a very interesting addition. It's still really good, and I'm curious, how it came to be. I wonder if we'll see, like, a Chaldea break room or a statement somewhere later. Because that to me feels like that was a tool that maybe, like, the game's, like, programmers and writers needed to, like, understanding what the fuck they're turning this script into. Because remember, Nasu, like, they say that the word count was worth 9 stacks of printer paper. So, like, it seems like the kind of thing that would have started as an internal tool, and they would have been like, wait, we need a thing. Yes, it's very important.
It is very important.
And then we get a flashback? ? Side saddle.
We get something called Fragments 1. Apparently this is the part where we follow what happens to Mash with a narrator that calls her my favorite. That doesn't sound ominous at all. So Mash gets picked up by slave traders who are, going to, sell her. But before they get too weird and handsy with her, a White Wolf shows up to keep them in check. While she remains ignorant of all these facts.
She is the most preciousest Kohai.
She is. I also have a note here, as, some terms start popping up. What is an odd, goggy caterpillar? And Omega very helpfully got me a description. And it is a creature used by parents around Yorkshire. Or is it Yorkshire? I don't know how to pronounce it. Yorkshire? Okay. Yeah. To discourage children from going into forests and orchards unsupervised, the odd goggy is a bogey that will take the form of a massive caterpillar. He can move invisibly through the trees and descend on any children who try to steal the ripe fruit he protected, swallowing them whole. This is fucking terrifying.
Yep. It's a freaky one.
This is a freaking one.
Also, is this when they start calling her Anise, or is that later?
No, this is when they start calling her Anise.
Yeah. Which in this case, in the spelling that is used by the text, that's the name of a flowering herb that is similar star anise, fennel, licorice, etc., but is not quite the same. It's also interesting, by the way, that regular anise, anyway, sometimes called aniseed or anix, is it's usually originally from the Mediterranean. So they give you some notes that things are not always what they seem.
From here, though, we go into section 2. I actually don't know how to pronounce this. Is it Salisbury?
Yeah, Salisbury. Same as a Salisbury steak.
Salisbury. Okay. So we start with
Trust us, chat. These will the spelling and pronouncing of things that are British will keep coming up. But yes, Salisbury. So we start with some local deity of Fairy Britain. Camelot is in the center, with North Britain and South Britain. With most people being in the south, there are 4 main cities: Salisbury, the Great Cathedral; Norwich, the port town. How do you pronounce this? Wow. Which one?
Gloucester?
Gloucester?
Gloucester.
Yeah. Welcome to this shit, everybody. Yeah, it's Gloucester.
Gloucester, the city of fashion, and Oxford, the great dining hall. Each is run by a clan head. We meet Oberon's assistants, Blanca, the cutest moth, super assistant. Why did Oberon use a question mark when he called her a friend? Don't know.
Is she an employee, maybe? I don't know. My notes for this were just moth.
Moth.
Not quite mother or mothest, but moth.
Through our bond, we do know that Mash is alive at least. Speaking of other people though, apparently it is hard to tell between a fairy and a servant, so Da Vinci is probably okay too. We have a bit of a talk, and Artoria decides to join the party. Doo-doo-doo. She also seems to have a bad habit of assuming things. Oberon seems to have schemed something. And with that, there is a fairy song talking about Artoria, calling her the Star of Hope. By the way, I still think the moment of Starborn is more thematically appropriate here. They also mention 6 spells that are needed and the location of Orkney. There is a scene of a burning village and someone saying that Artoria is the spitting image of someone. But alas, it was a nightmare. Tristan, why did you call her maid Artoria before almost calling her my liege? You're having a moment.
The face of a king.
We seem to be wrestling with something, but we are reassured that it will not be by our own hand that destroys this Lostbelt. It is falling apart on its own.
Boy, howdy.
But after this, we do finally learn the name of the High Queen of Fairy Britain. It is Morgan. Tristan is shook. And Oberon really wants to hammer home defeating Queen Morgan.
We've been talking about that one a couple of times, but yeah. I think we can say right here off the top, like, this is our first big interaction with Oberon, and while there's lots of nice tidbits here that, we've got some notes back and forth about, the general vibe I immediately get is while he's pleasant enough and very helpful, this motherfucker absolutely has his own agenda. He has his own reasons why he is here and, like, what he's getting out. And they are not necessarily one-to-one with us. I would like to reiterate, we were not told explicitly to fight the Lostbelt King. We do assume we might have to, but that is not exactly how our mission is going.
So apparently fairies here use sacrament for magic, not magecraft. It's considered unnecessary and only practiced by weirdos. Though I will say, Artoria, if you didn't want to talk about it, you probably shouldn't have commented on it in the first place. Seems to be a bit of a sore subject for her. After this, we do learn a little bit about Oberon's setting, including his awareness as being a plot device and a play. They also mentioned that while A Midsummer's Night Dream is the most popular version of Oberon, there is a record of Oberon the Fairy King existing before that. Titania, unfortunately, was completely original. Do not steal.
Yes, I actually had this in my own notes. This is absolutely correct. The name Titania that Shakes picked comes from Ovid. It is just a generic term for the Daughters of the Titans. Typically, prior to Midsummer's Night, the Fairy Queen is not mentioned. For instance, in the Ballad of Tamlin, she is just the Fairy Queen. Actually giving her a name was more common later. Funnily enough, this is also actually common in the Arthuriana as well. The character who later comes to be generally considered to be called Morgause, that is the wife of King Lot of Orkney and the mother of those guys. I don't want to list all 5 of them right now. In a lot of older legends, she is literally just called the Queen of Orkney, or like Orkaya. Like it's interesting that despite being honestly part of the plot, there are some characters that writers don't feel the need to actually name. But yeah, Titania, OC, do not steal.
As we discuss having to deal with fairies and stuff, Tristan wonders about being able to lie to fairies, because where he comes from, you can't lie to them. They see through any falsehoods. But Oberon is quick to be like, no, it's fine. Fairies are unable to automatically know the truth from the lie, so, we can get our subterfuge on.
Lost access to their special eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a thing, fairy eyes are a thing that has been mentioned in several other Nosferatu works.
We continue to talk here, and Oberon says a line that I think really hammers home what's probably going to be a lot in this Lostbelt is, the only way that you can tell if dealing with dealing with a good persona or not is when everything is said and done.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm only in section 8 here, and I'm seeing this. I'm feeling a lot of this.
Paraphrased in my own notes as basically like the only way you can tell who was good is when it's all over. But yeah, no, that's a line that really stuck with me as like, this is going to be thematically important, I think. Because this is in that conversation about falsehoods, obviously, but it's definitely got that raised point of just like, yeah, no, the only way you can really be sure is when you're all done with everything. That's definitely a theme we have run into before.
Mm-hmm.
That said, sometimes you can tell that somebody is just a scumbag. Looking at you, Beryl.
Yeah.
A fuckboy from top to bottom.
So we do learn that humans are present in this Lostbelt, and some of them are even free and independent, but they are a tool to enrich fairy society, being slaves so that fairies have something interesting to look out and ideas to copy. Fairy society and culture in general is just a superficial copy of human society. Oberon keeps pointedly calling Morgan our enemy. It's quite odd. We learn of another new location here called New Darlington, the National Slaughterhouse Theater. It sounds like a place I never want to visit.
God, please, especially with later shit, please no. I don't know shit about New Darlington, but I don't want to go there.
Maybe just Darlington.
Yeah, I guess that would just be the original non-new version of Darlington.
Yeah, because I do believe they say later that Darlington got destroyed. I think it was in a calamity?
Yeah, it makes sense. So, yeah, the original Darlington is a town in Durham, which is in the north. It's near Yorkshire area. That one, we'll discuss that later. That one at least has an excuse why it might be called how it do be.
Badooby. So to keep suspicion off our back, Artoria is going to pretend to be our owner, but from her reaction, I'm curious to know what fantasies were playing in her head and what she was too young to do.
In my notes, this is just written down as, Castoria's kink is pet play. This is my new head empty, no thoughts, only X Miyamoto Musashi quote. Because believe it or not, with how emotive she is, the jokes about Castoria's kink list come up a couple of times. She's really not good at keeping it in.
So arriving at a bar to gather information, we learned that Oberon is quite well known and popular and also owes a lot of people a lot of money.
This motherfucker.
This guy just seems more and more Merlin-like every day. Apparently when he first arrived, he had nothing but the cloak on his back. Apparently he just ran around performing plays and stories, and apparently arrived a long time ago and has been prepping ever since. Also, please spare the world from the Oberon-Tristan team-up. That will not end well for anyone. But enough of those dial throws. Let's check out the cutie new server, Da Vinci, serving you apple waters on roller skates. Oh. Is this why Da Vinci had a maid ascension, or did they just see the maid ascension and go, we can use this?
Yeah, this is where I inserted a note. I'm pretty sure that one of Da Vinci's natural genius skills is keen marketing. Put it up there with mixologist later, when she tells the inn owner, Mike, hey, I'm going to teach you how to make cocktails later. I'll be back. What? Natural genius, baby. It's a hell of a drug.
Hell of a drug. Apparently, before Da Vinci, as Mike likes to call her, the inn was... Apparently, the inn was so superficial that Mike, the owner, didn't even think about renting out rooms until the perfect angel, Da Vinci, told him about it. But as thanks, we got to use rooms as a base. Artoria is thrilled to have her own room. Retired to our rooms, quick recap of the Lostbelt, and the discovery that there is no world outside Fairy Britain. It is all ocean. That is very weird. Apparently, the fairies are uploaded to the cloud, so even if they shouldn't actually appear, they will. Human history convergent is such a weird term. I'm not entirely sure I understand it.
Yeah, my best guess is it's apparently like the concept of convergent evolution, but for folktales, basically. Convergent evolution is, basically just one of the explanations of, why do similar creatures show up in similar niches? It's because evolution pushes them to conform to certain things. So even vastly unrelated species can develop similar traits because it's just really smart of you to do that. In theory is used a lot in sci-fi to explain why so many aliens are bipedal. The reality is so that we can save on costume budgets, but it may actually have a point that, being bipedal and having free grippy hands may be important. But yeah, the other explanation, the way you phrased it, is being uploaded to the cloud. The way I think Da Vinci, one of the two of them explains it as basically because a human once thought up a fairy that looked like X, that idea is permanently enshrined in the vagueness of mystery. So, because there's a lot of fairies here, those fairies show up even though there's no reason for them to do that. Basically, despite the fact that there's no Germany, it's just ocean, Germanic fairies or French fairy stories, etc. will show up here, which is interesting, but weird.
Mm-hmm. So we learned that apparently Morgan took power 2,000 years ago, stopped the 6 clans from warring endlessly, gave humans who were nothing but cattle limited freedom, and had to build societies so fairies could have something to distract them. She also had put a limit on the number of number of humans born every year, rules out fairies with an iron fist, and sucks the life juice out of those living in the cities. One of the things she likes saying is, I offer neither absolution nor salvation, I only demand that you obey without question or hesitation. Show me your fealty in word and action, and I shall keep Britain safe. So, from what I can tell, I know I'm pretty amoral in a lot of things, but, just follow me here. From what I can tell, Morgan seems to have shown up and turned what was basically a chaotic mess of an island, slapped everyone and said behave, or else. From what it sounds like, she improved the lives of humans, and I'm gonna be real, if fairies back at Cornwall is any indication, I don't know if I want humans just running around riling people up with being all interesting and shit. And apparently, and these are fairies, so ruling with an iron fist is probably the actual way to keep them from rampaging. It does seem that she doesn't care for humans or fairies itself, but just for Britain as a whole. It's like she's an AI with Britain's protection being her highest priority. The only thing I don't understand is the existence tax. Is that to keep citizens from getting too strong, or is she using that energy for something else?
Yeah, we might get into that a little later, but I kind of took those whole block of points Lucky talked about. This is the point where I usually keyed into the theme that seems to recur in Lostbelt of like, this is the part where we explain how this timeline is royally fucked. There's nothing but the sea and Britain. Not even all of Britain, Scotland appears to be kind of fogged or cut off on the map. Ireland is nowhere to be found. That kind of stuff. But somehow Convergent Evolution replicated many European fairies. But this doesn't explain how, and somebody in chat was mentioning this earlier, but I left off commenting until now. Morgan has reigned for allegedly 2,000 years, but there are still normal British place names for things. Stuff like that. And why is she using command spells on every fairy in Britain? Or at least the ones that live in cities? Also, yes, the existence tax, because apparently living is rent-seeking behavior. This is taking... It's like she heard about in a story what humans call taxation and was like, yes, I know how to work that. Give me your magical energy or die. It's real weird and bad, and it's just like she seems to have obvious positives. I agree with you that I know fairies, I have seen fairies. Obviously, I think the fairies in the Nameless Village were somewhat riled up because they even said they hadn't had a human around them in a long time, Mm-hmm. So maybe it's like they were jonesing for their human fix. But in general, fairies are very chaotic and very mood swingy by their nature. So obviously, in general, from my experience in this Lostbelt, looking at it, I actually don't think many fairies. Some of them would be reasonable, sure, but there are a lot of fairies who would only do what you want if you held them at gunpoint. It seems to be a theme. There's a lot of them who their only rule is, well, I'm gonna do what I want until somebody threatens to cut off my legs or whatever. They are not easily controlled by their mercurial nature. At one point, it's even said how fairies are supposed to be nature spirits, so, they are embodiments of Mother Nature. So, yeah, naturally, they don't play by our normal civilized rules, but they think civilization is neat. So, it's complex, but I definitely got the vibes, even this early, and especially later. Morgan is not necessarily an intrinsically bad person. She is just like a lot of the other fairies and seems to have her very strict, specific worldview, and if you do not conform, she will fucking nuke your ass. At one point earlier, Goldorf described her firepower as like having an intercontinental ballistic missile in her pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Also, sorry, I don't know if Chad understood you, but I didn't catch what you said because I was mid-talk. What did you say?
Oh, she's very cold and ruthless.
Yes, she is pragmatic as fuck. But also maybe not, because there's a lot of opportunities she could take to be more pragmatic where she's just like, no, this is not a problem, ignore it. It's weird. She feels very tropey, honestly. She plays the role of the High Queen very well. Also, I don't know if you've seen it, but Robin did say it. He got the cutout. The line literally says, Caster was my name in the village where I'm from.
Oh.
She introduces herself as Artoria Caster, but Caster was what her name was in the village. But yeah, still a little, no matter how you slice it, oddball.
Oh, okay. Somehow I missed the my. Maybe replaced it with a the or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Caster was just a name in the village. Okay, yeah. So that's what happened. Alright. Weird me. But thank you, Robin, for getting me that. It was gonna bug me.
Now back to other bugs. Pa-dum-pa!
Alright. Apparently Morgan's army also does protect the realm from the Moors. Those squicky things. Morgan is feared and hated, but also depended on. Which, to be real, sounds like any modern nation's government to me personally. Actually, I'm gonna be real. How many people are actually happy with the way the government runs things in their life?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Lots of people aren't.
No.
You need them for stuff.
Mm-hmm. So. And then, behold, a prophecy about a young girl with a staff. I probably actually should have wrote that down, now that I think about it, but I didn't think about it too much.
The prophecy. There is some specific language to the prophecy, and it gets quoted a couple of times. Chad, I'm sure, will know what we're talking about. But yeah.
We're only
in
at
section 3.
So yeah, maybe we'll hit 5 hours or something.
We'll probably hit a 5er in this one. Especially as our notes unfold like lotus petals as we go on. This you think the story is deep now, we only go deeper.
A prophecy.
Which honestly, says a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see. Though it be too small for any other to see, the child shall be drawn to the light here as a moth to the flame, Once the child has averted catastrophe in the city of iron and the sea of soot, their pilgrimage shall truly begin. Chosen by the staff of selection, capital letters by the way, guarded by travelers from afar, shall reach the throne. The throne shall be claimed by a true king. Take up the bloodied crown. Let the 6 bells ring out like raging lightning, like grieving flame. Let them ring out and forge a path for the true king. Let them ring out before the red calamity reaches us. And I think there might be a second line after that one, but that's the bulk. So yeah, hey, what does that sound like?
Sounds like crazy. Crazy talk, all of it. So
that was the very end of 2, yeah.
Yep. So we move on to section 3, Aurora. Da Vinci has also had to invent mattresses.
They were just using rocks before. Crazy.
It is a little crazy.
What if Da Vinci showed them a water bed? How mental you think they would go?
They go pretty mental. I'm gonna be real. So apparently we only have light mode and dark mode here in Fairy Britain. The weather never changes except for an occasional rain. We learned that Artoria has an unreasonably high opinion of proper human history.
Yeah, I put in my notes here that I phrased this as Morgan skimped on her skybox budget. She can only afford a day texture and a night texture.
We go out to gather information about maybe finding MASH, and we learn that fairies like to gossip. Only about the child of prophecy and the calamity. But it turns out Oberon gives no fucks about your secrets. Artoria is the child of prophecy. Who could have guessed? Artoria gets real timid all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think this is the part, though there are several parts in this chapter where I could have written this note, but I'm pretty sure this is the part that I wrote where Oberon's true bugsona is not a moth, but a gadfly. That's a type of horse-biting fly. That seems to be one of his go-to moves, is just, hey, you know, it would really stir up conversation if I said this. Artoria is very, very timid.
It does make sense, though, because as far as fairies are concerned, she isn't very strong, so no one would give her the time of day, including the leader of the Wind Clan, Aurora. But Oberon is a face with max networking, so he can get you in, no problem. Except when snooty fairies are all like, ew, humans. Thankfully, it doesn't seem like this mindset is prevalent overall. Fun fact, both Coral here and Aurora are designed by Ta, the author behind today's menu with Emiya family. So after slapping around some dudes, we prove that we are not pushovers, and we get to see the head ho, Jesus, she is bright. Gets a ho intro and everything.
Yes, I was like, God, this fairy is too shiny.
Aurora seems very love and peace and light, airy thoughts, but for some odd reason, I find it hard to believe. Years of understanding the Fae folk, she did go give permission and assistance in helping to find MASH, though, so there is that. One line here. Devious smile.
This is also just in my notes, devious smile, in parentheses.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what's going on here, but I do think that Oberon has a hate boner for Morgan, because he is just going around really pushing the narrative forward here. He constantly tells us to defeat Morgan, tells others we are going to defeat Morgan, and seems to have no problem dropping the bomb that our insecure Artoria is the child of prophecy.
Yeah, this is very funny, because this is technically, I think, chronologically the first time we do this, but both of us wrote this very same note, just devious smile, and had basically the same thought. My thought about this whole conversation is basically like, I can't tell if fairies have OPSEC or not, basically. I guess this goes to the point of like, they can no longer tell the difference between lies and the truth. Oberon has supposedly been spreading the word and pre-prepping for our arrival Lostbelt 5 style. Like, that's what he says he's been doing. But also, every bone in my Anglo-ass body says not to trust fairies. Like, at no point should I take anybody in this room at face value. And this is also where I put in my own parenthetical note. Oberon seems to be really trying to get me to fight Morgan, which is technically not my mission statement. And I don't know why yet. But he's pushing. He's pushing his own agenda.
So after seeing Oberon get tackled, I can kind of understand why Nasu coached Kawasumi-san for this Artoria to be nothing like the Arab. This is like Lily, before she accepted the weight and responsibility of her path and really doesn't have a mentor to help her. She is much more lively and emotional than any Artoria I've ever seen, even the joke ones.
Yeah, this is another case of parallel thoughts. This is also the exact point where I wrote that down. Like, she reads very different than every other version of the role. Castoria is very emotive and volatile. She switches very rapidly from, like, every single thing she is, like, super excited about or super annoyed or, like, super depressed, you know. It's just so back and forth, and I feel like it has even more breadth than even the comedic Artoria is. Like, a lot of the joke characters are kind of flat. Like, there's a lot going on here. And not to say regular Artoria is flat, by the way. She actually has a lot of depth. It's just being stoic is kind of her thing. Whatever the opposite of being stoic is, that's Castoria.
So we get into more talking, and we learn that apparently the child A prophecy has to ring 6 bells, one of which being the cathedral in Salisbury. Aurora doesn't allow this for some odd reason, saying Artoria needs to prove herself. Turns out her test is cleaning out the calamity of Norwich. Figures. Apparently these calamities appear every 100 years, and is a curse that even Morgan can't get rid of.
Also, yeah, by the way, man, this really is just a Final Fantasy. We can't fuck with the plot coupon until we do a quest.
But that gets put on the back burner. Gotta find MASH. Well, Oberon gets in for those, we can do some odd man jobs to make some cash and gather information. Legaspo, there seems to be another child of prophecy. And someone called, I believe he said, is it Knocknera?
Knocknoria, yeah.
Knocknoria.
Also, yes, by the way, chat, that is how you pronounce that. It is pronounced Knocknoria.
Knocknoria. Has an army up north.
Do we want some Knocknoria facts now or later?
Let's go for some Knocknoria facts now.
Alright, so, hey, the name Knocknoria. So, this is the name of a hill in Ireland that is also known as Maeve's Cairn or Maeve's Tomb, as in that one, yeah. Also, the name can mean Hill of Kings, but also Hill of Executions. And also, it's a literal hill in Ireland where they think Maeve is buried, according to myth. So yeah, that's Knocknoria.
Knocknoria. I gotta remember that, Knocknoria.
Yeah, I don't know. They went for the very, very Gaelic spelling, but that's why I had to. After the second time I saw it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna Google now how the fuck to say this, and I was just like, oh, huh,
Knocknoria. At Get Base, we gotta talk about Artoria after sending a pigeon off. I think the pigeon name was Typhon.
Yeah.
How about Artoria Caster is this Lostbelt King Arthur, and now it's time for a Dummy's Guide to King Arthur.
And my notes, I put this down as Da Vinci saying, hey kids, want to hear about the once and future king? That's kind of how it feels.
We find it weird that this is happening right now, but word on the grapevine is that the Child of Prophecy is the reincarnation, of someone named, I'm gonna butcher this, Ask?
Yeah, I think it's Ask, or it might be Esh, because that 4-letter word, I'm not good at math, chat, that is basically the same Nordic root as ash tree, so...
They mentioned that.
Yeah.
Ask the Savior. We learned a little bit about the fairy timeline, and that it is split up into the Fae era and the High Queen eras, pretty much at the same split between BC and AD that happens in proper human history. Your waifu systems must be tingling, because you can't... One of the options you can say is you can wonder if Morgan is actually a bad person. My personal answer is yes, but...
Yeah. Also, this is another point where, apparently the way that was written in Japanese was Tonelico.
Tonelico?
Yes. I'm gonna assume this was either something, litigious, because there is the name of the, RPG series Tonelico. Mm-hmm. But also, literally, I googled Tonelico, I just get results for the RPGs, or people asking about it in FGO previously. So, I'm gonna assume that it was... kind of a loosey-goosey name there, probably related to whatever that series got its name from. The phrase Esk is definitely directly related to the concept of the ash tree, as in possibly the world tree, or, that as well. So, and yes, somebody in chat said they talked about the tree of emptiness was frequently referred to as an ash tree here. So, yeah, I think that's just a case of, the original name wouldn't have transliterated very well into English, so they went with something that maybe you may have heard of. There's also, I have a couple of notes about the conversation we have about the Knights of the Round originally, because Tristan and Da Vinci kind of go back and forth. My first note was, Mordred? Taciturn? I guess to Tristan, she would seem that way, but it's a weird one. But also, he gives us the full list of 15 here, so the playable characters we are missing from this list is Kay, Gaheris, Agravain, Palamedes, Palinor, and Bors. So, still got a few opportunities out there.
Okay, so I'm looking this up. This is really fucking weird. So, apparently Tonelico it's from a made-up language called the Hymnos, I believe it's known as. But it basically means R is the only, and Tonelico means divine tree. So basically Tonelico means the holy world tree.
Yeah, so it sounds like Nasu may have done a cute pop culture reference that just doesn't translate into English very well. So, they did their own wordplay on the world tree. For, like I said, for Esk.
Yeah.
Also, this is where my notes are. I'm like, oh, hey, so we're working for Fairy Jesus now. It's kind of what they're saying. This is the second coming of the Savior.
Mm-hmm. With all this, though, Chaldea OPSEC is a go. We cannot let her know that we might have destroyed a bunch of our Lostbelts, and depending on how things might go, might have to blow this one up, too. Maybe.
I, too, appreciate, as a man who wants to assemble the Orkney Rangers, I appreciate that some people in chat are still excited to remember Gaheris. Yes, he is real. We do keep mentioning him. This is important because sometimes as I've mentioned before, there is only one member of those twins.
Another point in learning about fucking how weird fairies are, they didn't even use wheat for bread into Da Vinci. It seems that fairies fall into two categories, those who just copy society and those who are interested in the workings. Apparently, when a fairy needs something, they just make it straight from their magic and does not care about they just go from A to D and do not care about B and C.
Yeah. They're just like, the way that it is explained is like, yeah, so because fairies can use sacraments, they can just remember they ate bread once and summon bread. But, Da Vinci actually teaches them the process for making bread, which it turns out to actually be more unique and memorable than just vaguely remembering what bread is supposed to be. Honestly, there's also probably something, I think at a later point you compare some of our tones and themes to Babylonia as well. That's something very interesting about that, because in a lot of those ancient Mesopotamian cultures, the methods for how to make bread and stuff were imprinted on clay tablets and basically distributed to everybody as instructions out of temples as needed. So there's something very interesting and subtle about how Da Vinci is handing these people, these fairies, some of the most basic instructions for how to civilization. I guess you could argue she's also teaching them about beer because she was talking about cocktails earlier. It's intriguing. But anyway, yeah, fairy Jesus.
Fairy
Bread.
Jesus.
Wheat.
Bread. So after a nothing fight, we listen to someone gripe about the queen, and we hear about the Tamlin, Gawain of the Sun, Tristan of the Bewitched Bow, and Lancelot the Light of the Lake. We are immediately bamboozled and have to have a team meeting, or we info dump on Artoria. Error 404, Artoria not found.
Yes. Da Vinci just blowing Castoria's mind right now. Love this effect, by the way.
I do believe they actually have the frozen sound.
Yeah, just the...
I love it. Turns out the Tamlin have been around for over 100 years, but that begs the question, how did Morgan know about proper human history all that time ago?
Yeah.
Not entirely sure. We do have towns that share the same name as Britain, but maybe they were around before? I don't know.
And we'll circle back to it. I think that'll technically be next week, because that's not until way later. Because, hey, semi-spoilers, but we're going up to Section 5. Tamlin Lancelot will not actually appear in the story in that time period. Interesting enough, she's kind of held back and hyped up as a character. She says some stuff we're probably going to come back to in a week or so about. Also, at some point in here, they talk about what Babbo's kill streak is like.
It's bad.
Yeah, I just wrote, Jesus Christ, Babbo, what a kill streak. She has killed a lot of people. Actually, no, this is a good lead-in, because basically my note that we can jump off from is, I just wrote in my notes, fetch quest, woohoo! But yes, we be doing fetch quests.
We be doing fetch quests. Well, yeah, no, the whole basis of this thing is we're just running around doing odd jobs to make money and get information. But after this, Tristan and Artoria have a moment. Basically, Artoria wants to know what King Arthur was like, and Tristan regales her with tales. Also, gives her some encouragement. So after completing some Oberon quests, TM, we have a visitor in our reign. It's Coral, and she informs us about a human ranch where a human was taken a few days ago. We have to go tonight, though, so we are off like a shot in the dark. We got to go. We meet up with our guides, and they are human, and they don't like us too much. And like Aurora, way too much. They tell us of a human as strong as a Tamlin, Percival of the White Light. Apparently Morgan had offered to make them a Tamlin, but he refused and took up arms with the rebel army.
Yes, and specifically, she offered him this job because he was an equal of Tamlin Lancelot. He bested her in a joust. So that's very interesting. But also, shout out to Morgan, would have taken him as one of her knights. Sounds very open-minded for, this weird, cold, oppressive lady we keep being told about.
So we make it to the ranch, but they basically call the ranch a factory, but make it look like a town so it doesn't affect human creativity. It's very weird. They also mention a breeding season.
It's a little model village.
A little creepy is what it is.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not here to kink shame Morgan. Well, I might be, actually. Hold on. I haven't actually met her yet. We might need to have some conversations. But yes, no. It's weird.
It's weird.
This Lostbelt is very icky. Very no-no.
So we try to infiltrate, but disguising a surveillance familiar as a streetlight? That's pretty smart. Okay, there must be a lot of streetlights here at this human ranch.
Yeah, my note version of this is just, Ace Christ, there's a lot of street lamps here. I thought, we'll have to fight a street lamp. What's that like? 900. There's 99 enemies remaining. Oh.
That's a lot.
Oh, no. They do at least justify it in the story after the fact. Da Vinci is like, there must be a ferry nearby somewhere just making these familiars. There was.
But, as you said, we point out the ferry. Is that a Tamlin? No, it's just a new mob. This is the fairy knight.
Apparently Morgan likes chess. No, that makes sense. There is a common variance of house rules of chess are called fairy chess, so...
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, we take that down, too, but 3 retake his place, so... Oh, no, we have to flee! Oh, wait, no, we don't. The cavalry is here. The rebel army is here to help and rescue the humans. While that goes on, though, we need to make sure Mash is here, so it's time for Artoria to show off her lockpicking skills. And by show off, I mean show off how bad she is at it. I believe they said there was something like 30 of them, and the rebel army got through got through 29 of them before they got through hers, and, just to make matters worse, had to open up that one as well.
Yeah. But
everything is...
The intervention was very timely. We were saved by the bell. This Artoria is a lucky child. Clearly.
Look at all these people. They're passing out blankets. People are happy that they are freed. Everything's going well. Scratch that. Everything is football and on fire.
And then it got worse.
Actual Tamlin Gareth is here, and she is hot. As in people turning into ashes around her.
Yeah, my notes for this were just, did Fairy Gawain just reduce those guys to atoms? That's what it looks like.
He already knows who we are, and that's not good. Queen wants us captured alive for some reason? My initial impressions of her, while Tamlin Gareth is cold and ruthless, she isn't cruel. She doesn't seem to be playing around or getting a kick out of it. This is just her job, and she is going to do it the best way she knows she can.
Yeah, she even, at the start of the fight, even holds back from using her full power because she was ordered not to destroy the human ranch. So she's like, I could just blow you up, but that's not what I've been told to do.
Yes. So we have a fight, and she is too strong and sucks up our command seals. So we can't fight her, we have to escape. Tristan decides to take one for the team and hold him back, and we see Tristan, our lovable dork, become Tristan the badass. He speaks about the serpent's view of death, and he even gets a couple badass lines before he gets an in-battle CG. Alas, he does not make it.
Yeah, my first note here was, wow, a CG and animation. It's like Solomon. But also, I don't want to undersell this here. To repeat what at least one of our Discord users phrased about it, this is real king shit here. He does technically job, but, the man said he'd lay his life down for me, and he stuck to his guns to the very end, and he probably left Tamlin Gareth with some stuff to think about.
Yep.
He went out there doing his best. Also, honestly, I think it's for the best he retired from this story now. Future spoilers, if he actually met Tamlin Tristan, I think Tristan would have exploded.
Yes.
It's just better he doesn't have to see that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Take a lap, King.
Just thinking of Tristan running around a fucking athletic field, arms held high.
Woo! we dumped the Gatorade over Merlin, because,
Also, I do want to say, I didn't realize this till later, but I'm personally glad that the seal suck isn't actually permanent.
Yeah, that seems to be the general vibes. I think I said in the pregame, I'm like, I don't actually know if it's permanent or not. It just says that she removes your command seals, so.
Yeah. No, I looked later, they're back. I was like, oh, thank God. But we try to make our escape, but unfortunately, the Queen's army is hot on our heels. Luckily, Oberon shows up to bail us out on Red Rabbit?
Red Rabbit. Or just in my notes, I wrote in all caps, Red Rabbit.
Who is pulling a carriage that is most definitely not a horse. Apparently, it is illegal to force people to be burdened, but it's okay if they're okay with it.
Yeah. Also, I believe during this ending monologue, somewhere with Tamlin Gareth, we do a big hype of Tamlin Lancelot. Basically saying, if she was here, it would have been over completely.
Mm-hmm.
So we start that hype cycle. We start building the hype train.
I do also want to say this is another point in Gawain's temperament. The fairies are afraid that she will just, explode and instantly kill the dude, but she's just like, no, you're right, but mind your words. She's a good doggo.
Yeah. She also says that having, basically failed and fucked it up, she's like, okay, cart off the rest of these humans. I'm going to eliminate the rest of the rebel army. I will go back to Camelot, and I will explain to Her Majesty about how it's all my fault that I blew up her human ranch and let them get away, and I will take whatever she has to deal out.
Mm-hmm.
Dog comparisons are very apt. She is very, loyal to her master, right or wrong kind of a thing. It's just nope, this is what I'll do.
And from there, we go to Fragments 2. We run into the 3 goblin brothers, except they're not all brothers. Rob is the older brother, Wag is the younger brother, and Winky is the unsavory friend. Apparently, Mash has charmed the hearts of these 3 goblins, and they seem less inclined to sell her to just anyone. But they talk about various things before moving on to Gloucester?
Yeah, Gloucester.
Gloucester seems to be a city...
Gloucester off the top of my head, but I can say it.
Gloucester seems to be the city of get whatever you want, headed up by Miran. We also learned that apparently the Queen was attacked by an assassin that almost did the job. More on that later. We speak about the Tamlin and how Gawain is the most feared, Tristan the most hated, and Lancelot the most beautiful. Again, hyping up this girl.
Also, I want to say this. In other words, I know exactly what type of girl these goblins like, especially because they're so keen on Miran. I think they like their girls small. But yes, I also wrote down that comparison because it's very interesting. As we say, Gawain the most feared, but Tristan the most hated. Tracks.
Mm-hmm. They get attacked, and Mash steps up to bat to defend them all, and I have to ask, when will our playable match get AoE attacks,
I don't know, but in my notes I just wrote this down as, Awaken my Kohai! Like, this is where we start getting for real Smash energy, and it's good.
Seeing Smash strength, they wonder if she may be the child of prophecy, a fact that excites both Wab and Rog, but Winky seems worried about this with the additional attention it'll bring, and says an interesting line. Even lies have a way of coming true.
Yeah, lies have a funny way of becoming true. I want to know what Fairy Tales Nasu digested for this, because this Lostbelt story is so on point. That is such an appropriate thing to say in this context. There's also another thing I want to bring up, because they explain these fairies a little bit. Apparently, Morgan claims that she and all of her kingdom are the Seelie, and the Unseelie court are the Wild Fae. Very interesting break there. Because in traditional folklore, well, not necessarily the good and the evil courts, the Seelie are supposed to be the more reputable, civilized court, often associated with summer. They, play by the rules. They try not to trick you too much. They try and, if you give them something, they will give you something back in return. The Unseelie are much more cutthroat, much more, opportunistic, more predatory, often associated with winter. And it's kind of interesting that despite the way that a lot of the clans under her banner act, like I said, Morgan seems to be explicitly calling herself and her followers Seelie. It's very interesting. Well, yeah, that's the bulk of Fragment 2.
That's the bulk of Fragment 2. So we move on to Section 4, Gloucester. What's this? There are 3 peddlers that found a fairy with an iron weapon near the Nameless Wood. We know a person like that. Red Rabbit's got to throw down for some odd... Red Rabbit's got to throw down for some odd reason, and I do love that Artoria before fight just goes, carrots? But we fight Red. I just like calling him Red Rabbit.
He's a lightish red horse, everybody. Because somebody talks about being whisked away by a white horse, and then there's a beat, and he's a lightish red horse, okay? He's a whitish shade of red.
Something else that I found slightly amusing, after the battle, Red Rabbit talks about how he never put speed limits in Fairy Britain. We get an overlook of Oberon fashion, and Artoria cannot be handled being teased.
History's other kink is maids.
Oberon reveals that Morgan's objective is that she is gathering magical energy in order to overwrite proper human history with Fairy Britain. This is probably what the existence tax is.
Also probably bad.
Probably bad, yeah. Might have something to do with that whole, collapse of the Earth that's gonna happen. Probably.
Something like that.
But while that happens, meanwhile at the villain's social...
Or as I wrote in my notes... Slay. Meanwhile at the Legion of Doom... What, you thought that joke was done just because Morgan blew up Olympus? No. I get to do it again. I think they even used some of the same music for the cryptor meetings here. Also, Morgan, quality interior decoration, has a giant chair.
Mm-hmm. I do want to say I find it hilarious. Even after we summon her, she keeps that chair.
It's a pretty good chair. Just keeps it in her pocket.
I like how she whips it out in her skill animations. We have a round of introductions. We meet the 6 heads of the clan. Lord Spriggan of the Earth Clan, Lord of Norwich. Lord Woodrose of the Faneclads, Lord of Oxford. Lady Aurora of the Wing Clan, Lady of Salisbury, who actually wasn't introduced.
No, we just know who she is.
Mm-hmm. Lady Miran of the Wing Clan, the Lady of Gloucester. Side note, who is this little pepperon? I hope it's who I think it is.
I also hope these things.
Lady Nagrabia of the King Clan, Lady of Edinburgh, absent, and Lady Ansel of the Mirror Clan, Guardian of the Lake District, absent. I find it interesting that she specifically is Guardian of the Lake District.
Yeah, I don't know. The Lake District is obviously a district in Britain. I don't know if there's like an iconic city, but there should be. Yeah, that's close to Lancaster. Keswick is actually in the center. It's also near Carlisle, so it is definitely, well, like I said, there's not necessarily an iconic central city of there. Like, there's still some notable towns in the Lakes District, so it is definitely probably a point that she is not specifically associated with a township. Also, the Lakes District, really beautiful. Lots of lakes and also mountains, and leftover Roman forts.
So we move on with the meeting, and Tamlin and Tristan, when I said slay, I did not mean that literally and without warning. It is easy to see almost immediately why Tamlin and Tristan is the most hated.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we have Tamlin Gwain with the interference, give the dog some hand pats. She reports on the situation, including our involvement. Apparently, Beryl Gut has informed people of our coming.
That said, I couldn't resist writing in my notes, shit, Oberon, this is why you shouldn't be telling people about us. Camelot knows the game is afoot. Pun not intended. I don't know which came first, chicken and egg shit, but Oberon has supposedly been chilling for a while, so it's kind of like, maybe we shouldn't be out here talking about all the stuff we do. But, alas, alack, they know. Babbo does slay.
We speak of Artoria escaping from Woodrose, and Tamlin and Tristan does not seem happy to be compared to her. Apparently, they both use magecraft, and both have been referred to as Morgan's daughters.
It's very interesting, by the way, again, thematically, for reasons we'll be getting into a little later down the line. Gloucester is a very thick chapter. The phrasing ends up being daughter, even though obviously with this being, we elaborate that we're pretty sure that Castoria is this world's Artoria Pendragon. Obviously in classic, mythology, Morgan and Arthur are, siblings. It is kind of interesting to hit that point of, just, that's how fairies compare it.
Mm-hmm. Apparently things are not as held together as they would seem. Apparently the North is waiting for the South to show weakness so that they can invade. Hence, they are unable to send troops to Norwich in order to deal with the calamity. In this discussion, Morgan says that she will use the water mirror to destroy the calamity and give 1/3 of the proper human history of Flotsam and the Western Treasury to help rebuild. Something Spurgy there seems to be excited about. I guess our trash is their treasure. New and exciting things that can't be found on the island?
He is from Norwich, which is the tech place, so yeah, probably.
They speak of evacuating citizens, but none of them wants to move for one reason or another. But no one seems particularly bothered about this fact. Not until at least Beryl Good shows up and says that he'll take them in. And immediately everyone says, fuck this guy, one guy in particular, and offers aids.
Yeah, so my thought process in the scene is so Beryl introduces himself, he owns the slaughterhouse because of course he does. And then he starts talking with Tamlin Tristan. I'm just like, ugh, he and Tamlin Tristan have cutesy nicknames for each other. Barf, kill him now.
I shudder at Lady Spinel and Red Beryl.
Just, ugh, they are such that couple. Ugh. Note how I don't say kill me now. Kill him. Get rid of him first.
This will solve the problem.
Apparently a lot of the clan leaders agree because Spriggan and Woodrose immediately reverse course rather than have Beryl do anything. They're like, they are completely non-committed to actually organizing any kind of evacuation. The Aurora offers her hospitality, but the moment Beryl steps in, they're like, no, nope, none of that. Ugh.
None of that. So BG there calls himself Morgan's first ever boyfriend, but I'm going to go with the headcanon that he doesn't even know what intimacy is. Unfortunately, this goes on as we learn that Tamlin Tristan wants to complete the Oyakadon, and I am shuddering at this. But Beryl talks about how once someone has something, others can lose interest, which I think talks about his character a lot.
I also think that, in general, kind of like Tamlin Tristan, Beryl is just, as we say later, a fuckboy. I'm fairly certain he makes these claims about, oh, I'm the future king of England, I'm Morgan's spouse, because he knows that it is going to really grind the gears of certain fairies, and he's doing the eternal taunt stance of just come at me, bro, you mad, bro? That seems to be his thing. But yeah, I also put in my notes, which many other people have replicated, Beryl is truly our dark mirror. We must destroy him before you can get any more waifus.
Mm-hmm.
We must remove him.
Remove.
Yeah, Morgan truly does not seem to give a single fuck either way, so...
Yes, as by my point here, Morgan ignores this talk to talk about how her plan is to take over the planet, and the clans will die if this as the foundation. I'm getting this feeling that while fairies are concerned with death, it's more something like an annoyance than a full stop.
Yeah, that definitely becomes, I think, a little more clear later, but we're rapidly approaching that exposition. But yeah, in general, I feel like Morgan's really rocking her Dark Queen Evil Overlord management style by basically going out of her way almost to do nothing to stop our heroes, at least in this present time.
Oh yeah, because we go on to say here, Morgan wants us captured alive because she wants to ask us something, and clearly have tea.
Yeah, but just her focus is so hands off. It's very interesting.
And it's just in general too. She doesn't actually rebuke Tamlin Gawain for the thing. She's like, no, you did great. You did great at Sheffield. So whatever. I'm gonna blow up Norwich. It's all good. No, we're not gonna make more humans. We're not gonna get more. We're not gonna build up the army. Everything is fine as is.
Yeah, and there's also I think a point of where some of the others discuss. They bring up that point oh, well, why didn't you send Tamlin Lancelot to just hunt those guys down and destroy them if you really wanted them gone? And I think that's where she brings up no, I want to capture it alive. I need to ask them about something. We need to have a conversation. And it's just it's weird.
a little weird,
It's also, I mean, I think I understand why Beryl is the way he is. This is a good point to bring up something that's very interesting, that some people in our chat have noticed and is not going to be resolved in these first 10 parts, so I'm pretty sure we can discuss it a little. So Beryl's a crypter, right? He's a master. Right. He claims to be Morgan's master either now or later.
Definitely later. I know the part that he does.
Yeah. I think it's technically, I think it's a flashback from here, but yeah, it's later in the actual text body. Morgan has been ruling this Lostbelt for 2,000 years, so unless the timey is really whiny, that doesn't work out. I have a sneaky suspicion that Beryl either never actually summoned a servant, because remember, the cryptors summoned their servants in the Lostbelts. That is a thing they did. All the way back with Lostbelt 1, we knew this was how it happened. So either he never got around to summoning his servant in this Lostbelt, or he may have already lost his servant, and Morgan just took his command spells, basically, because that is a thing casters can do, we know. I understand probably why, well, one, he's having fun. Like, he doesn't give a shit about stuff. Also, like, he doesn't have the normal master relationship. Like, Morgan doesn't really seem fussed, doesn't seem nettled about way too many things. I feel like if Beryl tried to, like, drop a command spell on her, she would just be like, no, and just, like, punt him into the pit. Like,
there's a giant pit outside.
Oh, yeah, they have a giant pit outside of Camelot. It's super cool.
Yeah, it's so great. No one comes back from it.
Again, that we discussed later. Not right now, but later. But yeah, so as always, I love our asides with our quote-unquote villains, our antagonists, and this is just as world-building as all. But yeah, there's quite a lot going on here.
Yep. Tamlin and Tristan has something called the Infinity Mirror that would let her find us real fast, but Mother doesn't want her involved with this. This leads to an argument between Gwen and Tristan, and turns out that Tamlin Gwen is just a pure girl looking for love and might just be a bit too eager about it.
Yeah, they have a discussion where, like, Tristan is like, oh, maybe you can teach me about the ways of love, you're a love him and leave him type, and Gwen is just like teeth grinding sound, and Tristan is like, no, I understand, you mean it honestly every time, you just can't help yourself. But also, yeah, this again, talking about our management style, Morgan is once again very hands-off with her Tamlins, her favored knights. Like, they act very full Mean Girl posse here. Gwen has a big appetite, obviously, but, like, seems to be mostly on the up and up. Again, chaotic good. And Tristan is exactly the kind of spoiled brat you'd expect from Morgan's, I put in notes here, adopted daughter. That becomes much more clear later, but yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Tamlin Lancelot is completely absent on the screen from this section, but is clearly the favored knight. Like, everybody understands she is the bestestest and the strongestest, but she's just not here. This is not the kind of, like, camaraderie and equality you would expect from the people named after the Round Table Knights, right? The whole point of the Round Table is that nobody was sitting at the head. They are all equals. That is not how Fairy Camelot works. There's a lot going on here.
So, after that little tiff, Tamlin Tristan returns to her room of heels and talks about how Beryl is having gladiatorial games that no one actually wins. But she is stressed and needs to go shopping. Plus, there's a special offer. So off she goes to Gloucester. Speaking of, we're about to arrive there. We talk about Miran and what fairies are, but Omega, I'll let you explain this part.
Yes, in my notes, this starts with just fairy facts, all capital letters. Okay, fairies are spirits. Generally understand we use the capital S spirit in the Nasuverse. When you see somebody say, like, heroic spirit, divine spirit, etc., fairies are spirits, capital S. Some are actually degraded divine spirits. They used to be gods, but became something else. Others might be human or animal spirits that are left over, basically, not completely assimilated into the world, and wrapped in some mystery. So, yeah, a fairy cat, for instance, might actually just be, like, the spiritual personification of a cat that gets wrapped in a legend. Neither of these are actually pure fairies, as explained by Oberon. Real fairies are called great mothers or great fathers. They are born from the planet. They are effectively divided spirits, Bunre, of Gaia, of the embodiment of the earth. So, they are extensions of the planet. This is how fairies have previously been described in Nasuverse. They are meant to be actual, like, the sensory organs of the planet to kind of feel itself out. They are also sometimes called Ares. So, Oberon explains about Morgan in proper human history. She is a human-fairy hybrid. So, she was born, a normal human girl, but inherited the authority of the Great Mother who gave Arthur Excalibur. That's Vivian is her given name in Nasuverse. There's a couple different ways to write it, but yeah. So, this explains some stuff, for instance, why Excalibur Morgan is called Excalibur Morgan. So there's some, interesting things going back on there. Ares basically generate their own realms, Fey domains they're called. Somebody earlier has been talking about Marble Phantasm. I do not know if that is explicit comparison, because that's not the phrase used, but given some things we're going to talk about in a second, that is probably in the same vein, yes. They also generate their own descendants, aka terminals, on their own, probably similar to how the Olympus deities, the Atlantean gods, generated their own terminals, right, once upon a time. So just by existing, a great fairy, great mother, great father, produces extra fairy shit. They have their own territory, they produce descendants, they gather mana from the planet directly. Da Vinci specifies that the phrase A-ray is a local term. This is a notes reference. That was one of the names for super evolved humans in the post-apocalyptic future was A-rays, so it's just a cute reference. She says we would call them elementals or true ancestors in proper human history terms, like Python. True ancestors and elementals are basically the equivalent of these great mothers and great fathers. This probably explains a little that has always been unclear about true ancestors in Fate Tsukihime works. Like, it's not necessarily like Ark, for instance, or the other true ancestor type vampires are out there, like, necessarily literally infecting everybody or having descendants the normal way, though some of them do seem to do that, but also just their presence seems to shape the world around them, and lots of big scary fairies are like that originally. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. And then, of course, I have a personal selfish note, but if only we could summon forth our own elemental Python from the throne, wouldn't that make an interesting conversation to have right about now?
Mm-hmm.
Alas, alack. Technically, honestly, from the end of LB3, we don't know when she's going to arrive at the throne, but, non-linear time.
I'm going to be real. I am slightly upset that we do not get to drag around Python through the main story. Because, she was a part of it. Yeah.
She's part of the story, and it's one of the rare cases where we can absolutely, literally just summon her up, and she's so mad about it. But also, she would have input on this information, because she is an elemental, being a Genren immortal. She is this same type of being. But yeah, so there's your fairy facts. This is not in my notes, but somewhere in there, Oberon is talking about how because he's using this to explain some stuff we're about to talk about with Gloucester and Murian's fairy domain, but Murian, as a clan head, is supposed to be a very powerful fairy, the equivalent of an A-ray, but a lot of the lesser fairies are not. They are like we said, the divine spirits and the nature, the animal and human spirits that get kind of wrapped up in mystery. This also probably explains that convergent human history thing we talked about earlier, because some fairies are just, folklore wrappers on spirits that, again, because folklore exists, they get to be there. But yeah, fairy facts, TM.
Fairy facts, TM. So, and an interesting point that came up through all of that, which kind of avoids King Arthur and Morgan, is that King Arthur fought to preserve humanity, make a world for humanity, while Morgan fought to preserve mystics. It's clear to see which one will win, considering our timeline is not called, proper mystic history.
Yeah.
But it does turn out that Miran has a fey domain that basically brings everyone down to level 1. The way they put it is, you can only come in with the strength that you were born with.
Yes, which all strength achieved through training is negated.
Which, personally, I find a little weird, because, I don't know, I've run into a lot of dudes that were, born of, things like, are all fairies, born with, just strength of, 1? Wouldn't, some of the Fang clan just naturally be stronger than others? I don't know.
Yeah, probably, but it seems like any level of training or dedication. They do also talk about, by the way, how this used to be different. Apparently, Murian tried the old inversion method, where the weak are strong and the strong are weak, but that was also too chaotic.
Mm.
So it's just, everybody is a flat scale.
Except for probably Murian herself, because Oberon says at one point, the more someone tries to enforce a rule, the more likely they are to be the sole exception to it. But it turns out only her and Nagrabia have one. We do not know which Nagrabia has, though. So we enter the city of Gloucester, and it is chaos. But as it's time for a date, I guess. No one seems opposed to this.
Yeah, I just wrote this in my notes. Oberon, did you just take my Da Vinci on a date?
He didn't seem that opposed to it. He wants to go to a museum. Maybe find a painter. Also, Artoria takes this moment to talk about herself. Also, I'm going to be real, Artoria. We only know of 2 others who can use Mage Cast, so of course you can brag about it. Artoria is just a humble country girl. When she's not straight up murdering people, Tamlin Tristan seems like kind of just a snobby rich girl. Oh wait, did I put this in the wrong space? Oh,
yeah, you wrote this originally, and I think you skipped down over it. This is technically later. We have our first incident, which is in my notes marked as just, these are not mice, because somebody calls out and oh no, my mice are escaping. Yeah.
While wondering what to do, someone accidentally releases our mice in some general vicinity, and we've heard to the story of the Straw Millionaire. For those who don't know, the Straw Millionaire is a story about a fool who prayed for wealth, and starting from a piece of straw, traded up until he was a millionaire. And same as Omega, I said, these are not mice. Excuse you.
Yeah, even though I did the pregame, this one still hit me because I'm pretty sure I saw in the notes that it said, like, oh yeah, you gotta fight a couple waves of dragons, but I was like, it'll probably be wyverns or something, and I didn't just put any stock into it, and then just the lead-up of the story of, like, oh no, my pet mice! And then you're just like, dragon! And I'm just like, what? Artoria does at least explain it. She reminds you that she said, remember, it's Gloucester. Things that are close are far away, things that are small appear large, etc. So, yeah, mice are huge dragons. Dragons are tiny mice. Wild.
But our reward is a coupon to a famous store. An actual surprise. It's useless. Apparently the store got bought out and is getting replaced with a new one, so once again, we have no idea what we're going to do. Enter...
Yes, my favorite phrase here is, I have obtained the plot coupon! As in that, all that coupon did was advance the plot.
We meet up with a snobby rich girl who we don't know is Tamlin Tristan, but us, the audience, we know is Tamlin Tristan. And when she is not straight up murdering people, Tamlin Tristan seems to just be a snobby rich girl. One that Artoria thinks that they could have been friends with? Of course she is going to the auction, and we can, and she likes to rub our face in it. This also might be to my superhuman aura of getting along. Not entirely sure.
Babbo does say, like, why am I being so nice to you? Normally I would fucking, like, eat your eyeballs or something. Whatever. She definitely has those, like, mean girl vibes. This is the movie Mean Girls. Where it's like, obviously she is a terrible fucking person. Mm-hmm. Mostly because she's not a person, she's a fairy. But, like, even among fairies, her sole existence, her raison d'etre, seems to be gremlin. Chaos. It's probably why her first skill is called Grimulkin, aka Fairy Cat. So, she's not, like, normally seen as a positive influence on anybody, but also, because she's not really, like, committed to anything, she's not necessarily, like, I don't know, like, even when she causes suffering, it's nothing personal for the most part. It's just how she has fun, so, like...
Weird.
Yeah.
It's like that blue and orange morality kind of thing going on there.
And I think Artoria herself, being a native of this Lostbelt, understands, like, yeah, no, we could have, been doing some stuff.
But she goes off, and we don't know what to do, and we move on. But later in the day, of course, Oberon has to take it to the auction. Also 70 million in fake fairy bucks.
Yeah, I wrote this down. I think this point encapsulates several things that happen here, where I'm like, Oberon is still a fairy. Don't forget this. He is a faker, and he's got, cheap-ass cash. But also, at this point, he talks about how, like, he really was hoping to, like, with his fake money to buy some unpublished work of Shakespeare or some artwork or something. And Da Vinci at some point is just like, don't worry about it, I'll paint you a portrait later. And he's like, really? Because he's a fairy too. He wants that milk of human creativity.
Mm-hmm. So the auction is about to begin, and we see several people entering it. I find it interesting that they used servants for this, except there was one that looks quite different from all the others. We go through the auction. This is where the point where Oberon mentions the unpublished work of Shakespeare, and we get to our final item: the child of prophecy. Behold, the child of prophecy. Muramasa prophecy. 30%.
30% chance is real.
30% is real. Grandpa is completely done with this.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes, this Child of Prophecy Old Man Edition is so tired of this fairy bullshit.
I do like it. It's not a choice. We just yell Grandpa.
Yeah. Oji-chan?
Oji-chan. And he's just like, who said that?
Hoopst.
Even though he's our enemy, we can't hate him, so we have to get him out somehow. So we start the bidding war. And of course, Oberon using Artoria's name as the bidder seems like another move.
Yeah, he used it under her name, either because he's trying to drum up public or he doesn't want to get caught. I do want to say, when Castoria gets her angry little fang mouth and growls at Oberon, I almost imagine her, like, chewing on his shins or elbows or something out of frustration, maybe nibbling his wings, just like, just like, Oberon! Like I said, like, just chewing on his shin or something, and he just doesn't care. But yes, big bidding.
Big bidding. Unfortunately, Artoria cannot restrain herself, betting everything plus more, none of which is heard, and immediately dies for the stage when called. Surprise! The other big bidder was Tamlin Tristan. I'm gonna say this out right now, Miran is a fucking character just laying out everything. Basically, they have a moment where they have to say, who here is more worthy of winning this bid? Tamlin Tristan talks about how, she's motherfucking Tamlin Tristan. And Miran's be like, yes, the such and such, daughter of Morgan, wielder of Madcraft. But then just turns on a dime and just talks about how Artoria escaped from Woodrose, kicked up a lot of people's ass, is the child of prophecy, and is accompanied by a human mage from another world. And people are just like, gasp.
Yeah,
and it's just like...
In my notes, I just wrote this down as, yo, Miriam, what the fuck?
Yeah.
She just drops it. I'm just like, what? Huh?
I do think it is important to note that while Tamlin Tristan, before all this happened, Tamlin Tristan did recognize us and was just about to let us off. Before Miran interjected. I mean, of course, we weren't probably going to let that go, but I think it's important to note.
Yeah, she was just like, oh, you're getting way over your head, country girl. Just get the fuck out of here. I don't care. I'm, having too good of a time. But then her authority as mommy's bestest little babo was challenged.
Again, a person is referred to as a star. I believe this was during Mirian's whole spiel.
Yeah.
And yes, I am digging my heels in with this one. Now, since the scope of the deal has gotten too big, you gotta do things through might makes right. It's Artoria versus Tamlin Tristan.
Or country fairy versus city fairy up in here.
Yeah, it kind of was like that. With everyone being level 1, I don't actually know how impressive this fight was. This is actually one of the scenes you see in the CM, and so I guess it was a little flashy, because it was Magecraft versus Magecraft.
Yeah.
Regardless, Tamlin Tristan runs out of gadgets and loses, and she is not happy about this. It takes Miriam pulling the mother won't be happy for her to back off.
Yeah, basically, there's a lot of good lines here. At one point, Castoria is like, I'll show you what comes from eating vegetables every day, And I think she drops the, it's 100 years too soon for you to come at me kind of speech at the end here. She gets real fired up, is what I'm saying. But you do actually get to see that, like, her hard work at developing Magecraft really has paid off. Because even when her potential to do Magecraft is reset all the way back to 1, she still has all of her knowledge, right? Just not the quote-unquote strength. And she still has the Staff of Selection because she was born with that. So she has a good Magecraft tool and is able to keep her control and pull off some impressive spell work. I believe several of the characters in the audience actually say she did some impressive spells. Whereas Tristan is much more reliant on specific Magecraft tools she was given by Mother. And also I think later they imply that Beryl showed her how to make some tools as well. But still, like, she's very limited in her repertoire, and so she runs out first. This is shown in game by her getting stunned after a couple of turns. And, like, she's like, I've got more at home. I can literally run back right now and get it. And that's when Meridian is like, but if you cause a scene, that'll reflect poorly on Morgan. She'll be happy about that, will she? And Tamlin Tristan just basically is like, Meridian, I'll remember this. And I just imagine Meridian's like, yeah, I bet you will. I think I wrote this in my notes here as well. You talk about her fucking off. I'm just like, do I have Kill Bill sirens? There's some good facial expressions. Several people have cottoned on to it. Castoria has a specific facial expression she adopts when she's really mad. Yeah, so, like, there's a couple of those shots of the sprites that you're just like, ooh, this got tense all of a sudden.
Whew. After all this, and, everything's getting resolved, there is a mysterious person talking about how cool Artoria is. Sounds adorable. Muramasa is freed, and he is our enemy, but you know what? Grandpa is Grandpa.
Or is that the way I phrased the same thought in my notes? Grandpa is Grandpa. Don't you understand, Castoria? Just, he Grandpa.
And for his part, Muramasa's the same way. It's like, yeah, we run in a few times. I don't hate him or anything. I'll even make you some tea. Artoria's just like, how do you look so young but talk so old?
Also, he's Grandpa.
By the way, if I had a nickel for every time there is a strange fairy that is strong and has an iron weapon but got lost in the Nameless Wood, picked up by Palers and taken to Gloucester, I have 2 nickels, which is not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
True fact.
Artoria mentions just killing Muramasa so offhandedly. Just like, oh, I guess he's got to die then. And you're just like, shit. But luckily she's into blacksmiths, their third kink. So it all balances out. Muramasa joins the party. Doo-doo-doo. This time you actually do say that.
We also get a little bit of a flashback here. More flashback. And we learned that the foreign gods sent Muramasa into this Lostbelt to just Rambo Morgan.
Yeah.
Just was like, yes, go into that Lostbelt and kill that king. Goodbye. And it would have worked if Lancelot hadn't jumped him. And I'll phrase this as, God, I want to see this full thing animated, because this is a note. You never finished writing this, but you already said the back half of it. But This is technically in the CM. You do see a little bit of him flying over the pit. But it's just like, the way they describe this is like, he gets right up to the point where he would have, I think he even phrased it as, he would have taken her head, but he got blasted out of nowhere by Lancelot's speed. And they then had a mid-air battle over the pit where she punctured his spirit core like 12 times, I think he said?
Yeah.
Absolutely Batmaned his ass into the hole. But because the foreign god gave him a lot of extra juice, he survived and managed to crawl out 3 days later. So yeah, it's pretty wild. Honestly, in general, by the way, I want to throw this up there. This is like my Currently, this is like my number 2 behind Lostbelt 5 to be animated. Possibly this will end up number 1 at the end of this, but like, there's a lot of good scenes here.
Mm-hmm. No, there's a scene. Oh, we won't get to it this week, but next week there's a scene that I want to see animated so much.
And this is why we write notes.
Yes. So we need to go meet Miran and Panic Scream. Sorry, BB themes gave me PTSD.
Yeah, my note in here is just external screaming. Like, the note hits and they do the little snap intro and I'm just like, ah!
Listen, I love BB. I love BB. You never want surprise BB.
No. Yeah, this said this was a surprise. You've actually got the deal on this one, though, so I'll let you read that out.
So, Miran gets an intro. Fun point. This character made a lot of people that this was Khazra drop in this LB, but Nasa states in an interview it is actually the reverse. Since Miran is one of the parts that makes up Khazra drop, it is actually Khazra drop that looks like Miran, not the other way around. Nasu in this interview did kind of be like, gotcha.
So, basically, to further expound, Khazra drop is one of BB's high servants.
Yep.
So, Miran is then officially one of the 3 parts that made her up, just like how, actually, it might not be 3. Sometimes it's more, but, like how Parvati and Melt are made up of the ingredients of several different servants. So, canonically, Miran is one of those elements. So, she has kind of, in that line. Yeah, I think she's a little taller than she looks, but she's still pretty small. And like you said, a lot of people misunderstood this or even deliberately misinterpreted this as Khazra drop being in there. I remember all the fake rumors of like, oh, Beryl's servant is Khazra drop. No, not how it works. But yeah, technically this is basically kind of the reverse thing of something similar happened with King Protea, because King Protea is made up of an amalgamation of Earth Mother goddesses. Technically she is part Tiamat, and some of her later ascensions and her concept sketches have elements that ended up being used for Tiamat. But funnily enough, it's kind of like back and forth and back and forth. Obviously, we saw Tiamat before playable King Protea, but King Protea was playable before Tiamat, etc. So it is kind of interesting how these design things go back and forth as well.
Looking up Khazra drop, it doesn't actually say what her component spirits are. It just says Miran and 2 unknown goddesses. It might have been that before. It might have been that before this, no one knew what made up.
Shit, I'm forgetting the name, but Foxtail. The Foxtail manga is still ongoing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we got a lot of our extra information about the alter egos like KP, Khazra Drop, and Violet. So it may simply be that the manga hasn't actually discussed what makes Khazra Drop yet. This is presumably why outright Khazra Drop hasn't appeared, possibly along with Violet as well, because there's still an ongoing stuff. God, that's so weird to think about sometimes, right? It's a tangent, but like this is probably why a lot of certain Strange Fate characters haven't come in, because they're just not finished being written, Mm-hmm. And even the ones we get are kind of different. Like the in-story Enkidu is actually Kiyu, so it's like very different character-wise, though the Seminole one is normal. Like, despite the fact of just how many different Type Moon Nasuverse things come out, there also still so many of them that are like in dev. It's wild.
Fate is a big franchise. It's kind of weird to think about sometimes.
And we're coming up next year's the 20th for Fate's Day Night. But also, that means that they've come this far in under 20 years. It's a big franchise.
It is a big franchise.
But yeah, so they hit the BB channel theme, and this gave everybody got a shock for this one.
Well, apparently Miran wasn't acting like their usual self, and I just find it very weird that they decided to act more. She decided to act more BB-esque than normal at this one particular moment. It's like she knows. But they go back and forth a little bit, but eventually it comes around to talking about the Child of Prophecy. And Miran and Oberon talk about how Artoria doesn't necessarily have that star power. But fortunately, we ain't here for that, or the bell. We are just looking for our friend. Miran kind of talks about how Morgan isn't doing anything to help Britain. The fact that she says this seems odd to me. Morgan might not be kissing babies, but she's working on something and isn't letting chaos rule the land. Though, looking at how Gloucester is, that might be what Miran wants.
Yeah, I put in my notes here, Miran says she dislikes Morgan's rule because Morgan is quote-unquote excessively cruel. Obviously, she enforces the taxation system, the population control on humans, limiting their expansion. She oppresses clanless fairies.
I'm not sure what this oppression is. I'm gonna be real.
Well, they get murdered or they end up in the Nameless Woods, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what's supposed to be. Those who are, like, denied clans or don't have clans.
I really don't think we've really talked about clanless, though, at all.
It's true.
Like, it's all been about the
Unseelie
six
are
clan.
feral, so it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
She uses the detritus of human history as her personal currency. So again, Miran seems to have economic effects. And I think the one that's actually the most important here is Morgan does seem to actively ignore calamities. They just keep coming and she does nothing about them. So there's some of this that seems like positives with some negatives, but keep in mind, all this is filtered to us through this sassy lost child. Like, Miran, especially as we find out way later, Miran may have her own reasons for these kinds of oppositions. And actually, I guess that is technically true. Castoria is clanless. Some people think she might be Wind Clan, but they can tell that she's not. So, yeah, it's a little bit of oddball. But even so, that doesn't feel very oppressed. That just feels like people ignore this weird, country girl with no political power, right? So yeah,
I'm gonna be real. That's how it is in normal life. People get weird thoughts about people living in a city versus people living in the country.
Yeah, I think some of this is just her sales pitch. Remember, Gloucester is the city of fashion, but also seems to be like the most late-stage capitalism city. Everything is for sale here, so like her opinions on like wanting more humans and less taxes and wanting more resources, more money, it seems like it's her sales pitch to us. The only thing out of these that seem like directly actable is probably the calamities effect. That is something that indeed Morgan does seem to actively ignore and not try to interfere with. But also a lot of fairies can't be arsed to do anything either. We talked about this earlier about how a lot of fairies have this like complex to be saved. They talk about this when talking about the calamity in Norwich, right? Spriggan says, I've told my people to evacuate. They just won't go anywhere. They think the Child of Prophecy's got to save them.
Also, what the calamities, like, here's the thing. We know there's that one calamity, and they appear like, what was it, like every 100 years? 100
years, I think, yeah.
Yeah. If all these calamities are, like, nothing being done about them, where are all the other ones?
Well, there are a couple of empty pits on the map, in addition to the pit. So, there seems to be vibes, yes, but yeah, there's a lot of political positioning. And again, the reason why Morgan doesn't do anything about Norwich is because Knocknaria's out there, right? Like, again, everything in this story is so dense, so deep, and take no fairy at face value.
Yeah. It's very, again, going to that line, you won't know who was actually good until everything's said and done, and like,
we haven't even hit the end of the first act here. We are still in the exposition curve, right?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, other than our general pursuit of MASH, the Master doesn't know what the fuck they're doing in this Lostbelt at this point. Nor does Castoria either. Like, we don't really know what the arc of the narrative is yet. We're still trying to figure it the fuck out. Artoria doesn't have the stuff. In my notes, I talk about this. We need to grind more. We have to do more MSQ, Castoria. Our item level isn't high enough.
I chose a different one, and I said that she needs to hit the leveling roulette a few times.
No, we both had the same thought. She needs to fucking grind it up. But it is like that. It's like, I
was playing Final Fantasy 14 at the time of writing this. So that's
like, this says quest level 60, Castoria. You're only 50. We gotta do some work before you can do this part.
All right, Artoria is once again called the Star of Hope. No, I won't let this go.
It's funny. It's almost like the script was written with the idea of what we call the Star Sport, and that they changed it later.
Unlike Barrow, all the fairy ladies actually want us. Suck it. Miran introduces her friend, panicked but slightly into it scream.
Yes, this is phrased as external screaming 2, Koyan Boogaloo.
And no matter what anyone says, I will forever believe that I jumped at bitch for having another new outfit.
Yeah, I wrote this down as, is the game implying I tried to lay hands on her for having a new costume? Because there's two dialogue choices here. Lucky and I both obviously went with the one that says another outfit. But no matter which one you pick, Miran acts like you tried to physically attack Coyanskaya. So, yeah, I think the game is implying that we just tried to shake her down for picking up another new outfit. Also, the Master's already thinking about all the QP and mats they're going to have to exchange in the dress shop for this shit.
I will say, though, if these two are friends, there is absolutely no way they're up to any good.
Yeah.
So we have a talk back and forth, and while initially it seems that Fitch is going to be with in our search for MASH, Oberon puts a quick kibosh to that and makes his disgust loud and clear.
Yeah, I just wrote this in my notes. It's like, Oberon just says, hey lady, hey, fuck you. Basically what he does. He just points at her and says, I don't like your guts. I do want to bring up before that actually comes around, though, because she's discussing whether or not she'll be available. Koyan once again specifically phrases that she is on of equal standing with the foreign god, in case you forgot who or what you are dealing with here.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, our discussion did not go any further besides Oberon just flipping her the bird.
Yep. I do believe later they say, that was the coldest you need to leave now I've ever heard. So,
yeah.
Little way. But before that happens, we just get some time between Miran and Coyanskaya, and it seems that they talk about how weird it was for Oberon to have that reaction, seeing that he only arrived 2 months ago.
Though, I phrase this as, I feel like after all of this, I know too much about Coyanskaya.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, we'll discuss her enumerated capacities in a second, because, like, he's got a little later than me, and he's got some intervening stuff. But, like, I don't know. It is strange, obviously, for him to have that reaction, but considering that at least his story is that he is a proper human history servant who was summoned to kind of pave the way for us by the counterforce, I would presume him to have that kind of response to Coyanskaya, a.k.a. the treasured beast. She's bad news bears. She is a problem. She might literally be a bad news bear. I don't know. And he's just not here to fuck with it. Then again, oh my god, how would you explain the beasts of humanity to the guys in this Lostbelt? I don't think you could. You're telling me if somebody loves humans so much, they freak out and become a giant world-destroying monster? They tried to blow up time? Like, they like humans, but I don't know if I would say they love humanity in the genuine way that some of our beast candidates do, right?
Right.
I don't think most fairies would understand this fucking relationship. So maybe Miran doesn't understand what Koyan's deal is.
Well, Oberon also does point it out to Miran. You know, it's all like, he's like, girl, if you trust me ever on anything, get away from her. Yeah. And Miran's just like, I don't get it. But after that, they talk about how weird it was. And it turns out that Coyanskaya is looking for information on the Fae area. She is looking for the demonic beast to incorporate into her, and mentions that she can have up to 9 big ones. Apparently, she has 5 tails.
Yeah, specifically, she phrases it as she has the power to control and replicate demonic beasts and can incorporate them into her body, basically her Saint Graph. She has a capacity of, quote-unquote, 9 big ones. And she explicitly phrases that later as she has 5 tails. She was actually looking for her 6th tail in this Lostbelt, but appears not to be able to find that one.
And I take it back. Apparently she doesn't like me, and she is just plain to the side so she can come out on top. Gee, I'm so surprised.
Yeah, in my notes, in italics, I wrote this as, oh no, the one that looks like BB is a selfish trickster? Whomst would have guessed?
What was that sound? Sounds like a moth taking off.
Also,
so
yeah, this is also earlier why I wrote, that stuff she said is about Morgan is according to Miran. Again, don't take anybody at face value, okay?
Yeah. So, having been kicked out, we figure out Miran's plan almost immediately. Turns out we are not as gullible as would first appear. We have a small heartwarming moment with the lower class Fae giving gifts to the child of prophecy. Muramasa seems to be thinking about something here. Well, it's too dangerous to be wandering around right now, so it's time to go hide in the Welsh woods, Oberon's domain.
Secret forest.
It's becoming increasingly clear that we are moving according to Oberon's timetable, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's another thing I should say. We talked about this. If you started quoting, all the worlds of play to Oberon, he would be like, yeah, no shit. Like, I feel like Oberon feels like the character who knows all the stage notes ahead of time, and, like, he's just trying to put us all in our places, right?
Right.
And it's weird, because he doesn't explain to us he has the script notes, right?
Right.
But he does, and he understands there's some shit going on here. Obviously,
I think
he's not Go ahead, finish.
It's like he's treating everything like it's a giant stage play, and we're all the actors in it, with our lines and reads and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think this is too big a spoiler to go, but he does explicitly in a conversation later talk to us about how he doesn't think himself or us, the master, is the protagonist of this story. He doesn't outright say it's Castoria in that line, but I'm pretty sure he's implying it. But he still says that we have important roles to play in the story. So, like, he's really treating it like this is a stage play, and everybody has to hit their marks. But also, he's not in complete control of the timing, because later some stuff we're going to get into makes it very clear that there are some miscommunication, some missed timing here. And also, before we go, this is a future Omega note, but a thought I just had. I just realized that the way Gloucester shook out, that meant that the 2 Wad Arco designs from this story are hanging out. Weird.
That's true.
Because she obviously, Wad Arco drew Coyanskaya's new version, but also drew Miran, so... and as usual, they, recruit a lot of their artist buddies. We talked already about, Oberon's artist, the artist for Coral and Aurora. I'm not sure if we know the artists for some of the later boys, like Woodwoes and so on, but they're out there, I'm sure. And obviously, Morgan's design was done by Takeuchi himself, so, yeah. But that's just a funny thought I had later, and I was just like, oh yeah, that is weird. Neato. Oberon is the dungeon master of the campaign. Yeah, that sounds a little bit right. He's not outright railroading us, but he sure do be telling you where to go and what to do. Hey, you should kill some time in this town. Do some fetch quests.
All right. So, it turns out we move on to Section 5. This will probably be our last section for this. But now we hit section...
Section 5, Fragment 3, Sheffield, which I joked was, we're rapidly approaching the end knuckles of chapter names.
It turns out the Goblin crew and Mash headed for Sheffield instead. The city is a hub in the north and a fortress city with enchanted walls. Apparently it incorporates the bark of the World Tree.
Also, I believe they say this is the only other actual castle town in Britain, with Camelot being the first.
Yes.
Which is very interesting.
Built by the Lord of the City, Bogard, who apparently sounds like a character and was kicked out of the Fang Clan after finally become its leader. He is known as Bogard the Braggart and Bogard the Loveless, and an interesting character fact, he is called the Loveless because he will never marry for love and only takes human wives. All of his fairy lovers before him hated him. Even betrayed him, so he lost his battles with both Spriggan and Woodrose.
Yeah, so this is more of that fairy politics stuff.
Mm-hmm. Turns out that Matt...
talking about that thing we talked about where Mash headed to Sheffield, this was apparently while we were still asleep as well.
Did I? Oh, okay, I did write it down, okay. Mash has a castle fetish.
I mean, it makes sense with her shield.
It does. Winky really wants to cut and run, but the White Wolf is still there, following silently. At this point in time, we do find out that Mash is having this adventure while we were still passed out in the Nameless Woods. And I just have to ask, just how long were we out?
Once again, talking about Oberon's timetable, that guy just left us passed out with name tags for this whole bit. We still haven't caught up to time. So it's interesting.
So, the Gob crew takes Mash to see Bogard and tries to sell her. But Bogard sees through it all, seeing that Mash is human. The Gobs almost get hanged, but Mash stops it, and Bogard finds out enough reason to let it be.
You know, because she manhandled his guards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're pronounced the same way, but spelled differently. The joys of text-based games. Also, I like your note earlier. Bogart clearly comes from the Edison family tree. He is a cat man.
Yes.
I will not grace him with the title of Cat Dad, but
no,
he's in the same ballpark. The same family tree, the same genus.
Yeah, he's almost a cat dad. Not quite. He does suggest to stop going by Annis, which by the power of Wikipedia, Black Annis, also known as Black Agnes or Black Anna, is a bogeyman figure in English folklore. She is imagined as a blue-faced hag or witch with iron claws and a taste for humans' flesh, especially children. She is said to haunt the countryside of Leicestershire, I shrug, living in a cane in the Dane Hills with a great oak tree at the entrance. They do explain this a little bit later, but in the moment I was like, no, I want to know who this is now.
Yeah. So, which, by the way, and it makes sense because of Robin Wang's backstory later, but that definitely implies that they had a certain thought about this, and then I feel strongly like Bogart says that because he's actually met Black Anise and is like, no, it's not a good name.
Actually, I wonder. I might make a note about this later. Yeah. They talk back and forth, and Bogart says that Mash is to be his 60-second bribe, and I imagine that this is the moment I woke up and screamed, Mash!
That would be very funny if that's how that timing worked out. That is the first thing we say when we wake up.
It is. My kohai senses were tingling.
Also, chat, you can double check me on this. But I feel like this is another point where Lucky has it one way in his notes later, and I have it in my notes now as something else. They start talking about Mash. I thought that at one point the townsfolk or the goblins or somebody rumor that she withstood a blow from Gawain, but Lucky has it later that was something attributed to Bogart.
Yes.
I would like chat's clarity on if I'm misremembering that in any way.
I'm pretty sure I'm right on the right in this one because later, spoilers, Tamlin Tristan also mentions something about it.
Yeah, like I said, your way makes more sense later, but that, like I said, that's just not how I wrote it down in my notes. Also, that if you said that about MASH, that would be funny because it's more true than they know. But yeah, that said, we still have some other stuff to level up to that one.
Yep. So Bogard basically sends off to go get properly dressed and enter Habetrot, also known as Habicat, known as Habayont, someone the narrator calls Mash's final bastion. Quote, I'm Lady Goddamn Habetrot. I adore her already.
Yes, Habayont based.
Based. Completely. No fucking cap.
Just like, I'm just, my notes were just like, oh, she's finally appeared. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Habetrot takes one look at Mash and decides to marry her on the spot, and I consider this fine.
Yeah, I wrote that as, Habetrot immediately moves to cuck Bogart, as is good and just.
Mash learns that her name is actually Mash because she conveniently wrote her name on the shield. My precious kohai is Precious.
Wrote it in chalk.
In chalk. Actually, that's a little weird, but maybe she didn't actually want to write it in, paint or ink or something. We get a new MASH look. I do believe this is the outfit we see in CMs and whatnot. It looks good on her. I love it.
Her quote-unquote bridal dress, but,
Narrator, why are you being so ominous? Please stop. I do believe they, at several points during the Sheffield chapter, just mentioned, Doom is coming! And you're just like, no!
Yeah.
Apparently have started spreading about Lady MASH, including being stronger than Bogard. More on that later. Apparently, Bogard can withstand a blow from Gawain, and MASH sent him flying. Godbros continue to be optimistic. Winky continues to regret every moment of this.
Yeah, this is the part where this definitely comes up, because it's talking about in the rumors about being stronger than him. At some point, they do talk about, MASH just mentions while she's walking around town. Oh, it's the least I could do because I destroyed some of the castle walls last night, and I was just like, MASH, what the fuck did you do to these people? No worry, that comes back. That's a comedic setup, everybody.
Bogard doesn't actually think that MASH is the child of prophecy, and apparently something happened last night. The narrator calls Bogard a cruel but excellent lord.
This seems about right.
Mm-hmm. Bogard tells MASH that she needs to act dignified as the lady, and cue MASH, acting dignified, puffing out chests and putting on airs. Realizing there's more to dignity than that, I laughed at it. As part of her queenly duties, MASH has got to help out with cleaning up moors. Habetrot thinks this is adorable.
And this is where I put in the notes, because there's a fight here. Damage Cut's back, baby! Everything's right in the world!
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, I miss Damage Cut. Oh, it's so good.
Habetrot still claims MASH as her bride and declares her cuteness to the world, as is right and just. But she also doesn't want MASH calling her Happy Cat.
Yeah, this is where I wrote in my notes that Bogard is not actually the worst dude. He's a bit focused on his pride and a little controlling, kind of appropriate for a cat man, but he has principles, reasons, etc. This is also, I believe, where some point in this line where because you're talking about, Habetrot saying she wants MASH as her bride still. I just put, note, Bogart's only married to MASH on paper. Note, Habetrot still says MASH is her bride.
Yep. No. Behold a level 100 MASH in this battle. Give it to me.
Yeah, I can't wait for that shit.
That's pretty nice. This is our first fight that we get to play with Habetrot. It's great. She's adorable. Her lines have subtitles for some odd reason.
Yeah,
weird.
So I put this note here because this is what people have been saying, but there's two reasons for this. Either her NPC version has unique dialogue. This is seen with some NPCs later in this Lostbelt, who have, special skill comps for just the NPC version. They get subtitles because their dialogue is different. Or it's because she's unsummonable until we actually clear the Lostbelt, because she is added to the FP gacha later. Can't wait to spend 5 million FP on that one. Chat, I'm sure will know which one it is, or be able to check if the summonable version has different dialogue. But yeah, they seem to be getting better about making sure that you can understand the characters in context, especially when, like I said, they have unique special dialogue.
Well, also Muramasa is unique.
Yeah.
So,
spoilers for a future note, he's actually an alter ego. That threw me for a loop the first time. I was like, wait, I'm doing my team comp wrong. Which, by the way, that's a solid also translating that as Happy Cat. That works.
Oh, yeah.
But also, one of her dialogue lines when you pick her NP card is just, nyan, 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 nyan.
And they just go meow, meow, meow. If that's not in there originally, I'm going to be the most upset person to be.
Also, I fucking love her NP dialogue, too. It's just I'm going to deal out some happy ends, baby. Literally, happy endo. It's good. It's great. I'm so glad she's an FP servant later.
Like the most positive gremlin.
She is your positivity gremlin. She's a spinner fairy. But yes, there's some stuff going on here.
There's some more stuff going on here. So after the battle, MASH just looks out upon the lands and marvels at them, and Bogard tries to understand her. Not sure if he succeeded, though.
Yeah, he's not great about that, but he's trying.
He's trying. We learned that apparently the marriage is on paper only, but hearing MASH call herself a wicked woman makes my day.
Yeah, she has a really, slightly overinflated opinion here.
But along with this conversation, MASH confides her worries with Habetrot about missing something in her heart. Habetrot tries to comfort her, but she says some weird stuff that I'm not necessarily sure I followed.
And even the narration is keen to point out that, some of the things Habetrot is just saying to say stuff,
Yeah. The narrator continues to be sus. It has to be Oberon, Beryl, or Habetrot herself. It's that's what I think right now.
My current money, I think, is I feel like, given some of the way she talks about Habetrot, it's got to be Habetrot at a later point, cataloging the story. But I could also see it being somebody else. That's just how I feel. Some people in chat are talking about maybe Merlin.
I can see that as well.
That could also work. He's sassy enough for that. But yeah, that's just my general vibe right now.
At this point, narrator activates the reverse card and takes us back. Apparently, MASH is strong enough to shove Bogart through a wall when only a bit surprised. He takes it fairly well.
Yeah, so, hey, remember when I asked Mash, what did you do? She just told Bogart, "That's my purse, I don't know you," and kicked his ass clean out of this castle, without trying.
Without trying. I do want to say, I don't know if I maybe glossed over it in previous things or not, but this Lostbelt seems a lot less restrained when talking about potential sexual assault.
Yeah, this is why I can't be 100% keen on Bogart. He does plan on doing a sex crime.
Yeah.
That is a thing he states he is going to do. And just because, the girl in question has more of a backbone than most girls, or at least has more supernatural strength to fucking punch his ass out of a tower, doesn't, undo that. I at least likes that he, doesn't try to repeat that mistake. He realizes that Mash is simply built different. He's not a great guy.
Even before this, when the Gob gang got picked up, Mash, they talked about when they sell her, she would at least have, a roof over her head and, at least, and, a companion to sleep with. So it's just a little weird. I don't know if it was necessary, but also nothing seems to be actually happening about it.
There's some further dialogue. There's several points, I should phrase it as. There's several points where they discuss the concept of family and relationships and generations, and all of it makes that kind of stuff weird.
Yeah.
Number 62, yes. I'm very glad, by the way, I don't know if Nasi would get this meme necessarily, but I'm glad we resisted the idea to use the sex number. That would have been too on the nose. I don't think I could have taken it.
Yep. But after this, we cut back to Rob, who's talking to Wag about their life and, how they have to look out for each other and take care, and how meeting Mash has made them, better people. And, Rob, you're all right in my books.
Yeah, I also put this in my notes. You're a good egg, Rob. You're a good egg.
We see more of Bogart talking to people and talking to Mash, and I just come to the realization that Bogart is just a fucking tsundere.
That is kind of how they phrase it, isn't it? Because it's discussed I don't remember if it's in this chapter or not, but we can talk about it now, where at some point Habetrot talks about how Mash is Bogart's natural enemy.
Yeah.
Not in the sense that they are opposed worldviews, but just she's the kind of person he can't deal with. Because apparently his fairy nature, his purpose is he is strongest when he is hated and has someone to hate.
Yes.
So Mash doesn't hate him because I think there's probably a list of I can count the number of people Mash hates on one hand, tops. But also, she's far too adorable for him to hate. So he just doesn't have any power over her and doesn't know what the fuck to do with his life.
He tries to be the cruel and uncaring Lord, but he just says something to be yes, it would be a good idea to go maybe out on a date. He's wait, no!
Yeah.
He's away from me, woman! I gotta go be menacing somewhere. Then he flees.
And I think when he's talking about, that is much later, but he talks about, he disparages restaurants, which is something that Oxford was said to have later. That's, part of, Woodrose's whole deal. And then at some point he just says, well, it'd be cool to take you to one time, and then he just goes, "I'm gonna say that. Why did I bring that up? Ignore me."
Bogard just seems like the character to swish his cape.
Yes. Also, probably, I don't know if the sprite ever shows if he's got a tail back there, but I bet he has a long, swishy lion tail that he swishes. But yes, plot stuff is happening also.
And plot stuff is happening because we get a scene with Bogard and Habetrot later as they talk about an iron rod, similar to Morgan's weapon, that can be fired and makes Habetrot sick to touch. Oh. Mentions that Mash may be avoiding it.
Yeah, I believe the story mentioned that Mash had a iron cylinder, or the iron weapon with her earlier. But this is the first part where you start to realize explicitly what that is. Because Ortonax fell apart, but part of it did not. It's the Black Barrel chat.
After that, we learned that Morgan's 3rd Regiment is coming to do battle. The ramparts are reinforced with the bark of the willow tree. They do have a plan for the battle, though. It does seem that Bogart is at least a capable military commander.
This is also where in my notes I was oh boy, is Bogart gonna have to take a Black Barrel nap? Those were our best psychosomatic naps. Delicious and life-threatening nap. I'm pretty sure this is it's that conversation where Habetrot, where he actually, Bogart straight up understands what a cannon is.
Yes.
He talks about it in magical terms. He talks about building up magical energy as opposed to, gunpowder, but he understands the concept of artillery, which is weird.
Later that night, we get some more history, speaking of 2 major calamities, which apparently happen every 1,000 years. Let's see. So, about 16 years ago, Morgan killed or attempted to kill anyone that might end up being the child of prophecy, And once upon a time, there's a savior appeared who stopped interclan warfare that almost destroyed themselves. That was one calamity. The second calamity was the War of Summer on the Fey year 2000, where the northern fairies of the Isle of Shadow waged war. They were led by Queen Mob and her human warrior army.
The Queen of Air and Darkness.
This was stopped by the savior Ask, or Ash Tree.
Yes, interesting. Also, by the way, I love this note. This means that Lostbelt Morgan did her own Mayday massacre. If you guys don't know this one, in some versions of the Arthurian myth, Merlin delivers unto Arthur a prophecy saying that a child born on this Mayday will cause the downfall of his kingdom. So Arthur does what is generally considered a bad move and has every baby born on Mayday rounded up and executed. He may or may not have known about that part, but they're all rounded up and put on a boat, and the boat burns down and falls in the lake. Except for Sir Mordred, who is concealed by his mother, Morgause. This is generally considered to be a bit of a dick move, and in some tellings, this actually causes King Lot, the ruler of Orkney, to rise up again against Arthur in rebellion, which gets him killed by King Pellinor and starts a whole blood feud thing. But yeah, so I don't think that's canon to fate, but it is really interesting to, because Nasu obviously would know about it, to have it phrased as like, Morgan basically did her own version of that, which is interesting. I like it. Themes, parallels.
So Bogard doesn't believe in these saviors because the calamities are still present. Oh geez, maybe there's something like fundamentally wrong here and the world can't take it or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's almost like somebody burned down your existential timeline life support system and your world is trying to eat itself or something.
Fairies really like passing. I'm starting to realize fairies really like passing the buck. No one wants to be responsible for shit.
Well, this one so this hasn't been discussed too much, but Oberon, when doing his recaps of fairies at some point, did mention that fairies are immortal, right? They don't age or die. The only way they can run out of energy is basically they fulfill their purpose and are complete, and then they vanish. Or they lose their purpose and freak out and become amours. So this means that fairies are usually portrayed this way in folklore as well, but these fairies have a really fucked up sense of time. So to some of them, those 100 years, those 2,000 years could just be like the blink of an eye, you know? So
True.
You are right in that they're not really good at taking responsibility, but it's probably because they don't think of time in that sense. They're not being smart about it. Whereas humans, obviously, with our, we only have so much time allotted to in our lives, would obviously be like, oh, the fucking world is constantly in danger of ending. We need to get this shit out of here. I need free time in my life to, drink mimosas on a beach. What the fuck is a mimosa? I'll tell you later, Mike. It's canon. Da Vinci discussed with Mike how to make a mimosa. I bet fairies would love brunch drinks.
Oh, I bet they would. So Bogard is going to use this entire situation to his advantage to put the squeeze on Morgan and just needs Mash to sit pretty. Mash is just like, okay.
And again, I appreciate that, he's not a nice guy, but once he understands Mash better, not all the way, but he gets a better grasp on her character and capabilities, his thought is just yeah, no, I don't need you to do anything. Just sit here and be you. Maybe be a little less you, but just, exist. He doesn't really demand anything from her. And in fact, when she tries to help at first, he gets a little annoyed because he's just like, well, you could get fucked up out here. I need you to be fine. But once he realizes again how capable she is, he's just like, well, it's good for morale to see you going around. And it's not like I don't need the assistance punching Moors because that's, shit that other people have to do. So fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
It was not fine as we go on to the next scene. And my only note is, Winky, no!
Yes, I wrote basically the same thing. Winky, you fool! Both in all caps. At a different date, I compared this to the Walter White screaming in the SUV meme. It's just you see what he's doing, you're just like, Winky, no! Don't do that, Winky! You fool! No! Don't do it! It's too late, he did it.
Yep, and I followed this with Barrel, oh hell no!
Ugh.
With my final bit of, oh, Winky's dead.
Yeah, he did it dumb.
He did a dumb.
Somebody in chat asked, if fairies are immortal, why is it scary to have a life tax? It's because they still have a finite amount of magical energy. That's what Morgan is siphoning. So, if their energy is siphoned, they also do just, shrivel up and explode. But the main thing is that, they do not have a biological clock of dying. Honestly, Morgan may have partially also levied the existence tax so that, the fairies who are weak and just fucking around, just die. Because otherwise she'd be stuck with them forever.
I can't say I hate that idea.
Yeah, no, listen,
I'm gonna be real.
I don't think Morgan is a great person either from all of this, and we know for a fact Pan-Human history Morgan had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
She was not great in a lot of ways. At the same time, looking at this society run by fairies, it's also like, yeah, no, if I could come up with a scheme where these guys have to pay me money or just fucking die every year, I would. Most of these guys suck. Like, I do not want them running around for forever.
No, just like, I'm gonna be real.
But yeah,
right now, I'm just gonna say Morgan is like is a bad ruler in a land of bad people. I'm not gonna say that everyone's like, bad and evil, but a lot of people here just seem to, their number one concern is themselves. Yeah. Like, their secondary concern is themselves. Their third concern is themselves.
I mean, if you want to do a 1-to-1 comparison, obviously, while Artoria was not a flawless king, she tried real hard to live up to that unreasonable ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Morgan is not doing that. Morgan almost sounds like, but it's really weird. I hope we get into this in the backstory, but it sounds like even before she became queen, she was done with this shit. Like, her initial speech, I bring neither absolution nor salvation, is such a, like, no, don't fuck with me. You will serve me, or I will fucking obliterate you. I don't care what you do in your downtime. All you have to do is listen to me. Okay, cool, we're going. Like,
it really is. It's like she came, like, just pre-done for some odd reason.
Yeah. So, and I have a strong feeling that will be unpacked. Especially because, obviously, I think there is something to be said where, like, we're casting Morgan as, like, the false king, and Artoria is the rightful king. It's kind of interesting given their familiar relationship and how, at least in the way the fairies treat it, is they treat Artoria as Morgan's quote-unquote daughter, even though they're not in any way physically related. So, I think she's a little similar to Saber Alter. They definitely have that kind of, like, coolness factor to it, but Saber Alter is much more overtly lawful evil. Like, she definitely has very, very strict codes of conduct and is, like, forward, but also would be the kind of asshole who does the louche move of saying, like, well, if the king doesn't go first, the people won't follow. I will personally leave my room to kick your ass. Whereas, as we've seen, we're 5 chapters in, we have literally not seen Morgan outside of the context of her throne room. We haven't seen Tamlin Lancelot at all, but that at least implies that she is out in the field, right? You know, Gawain is out in the field. She doesn't ask Tristan to go out in the field, but Tristan does go out because she can teleport anywhere. So, like, it's really interesting how just, like I said, hands off and done with this she seems. And the more we see from the other clan leaders, there's definitely, like, other thing, like, all of them have their own little agendas. And it makes me kind of curious about how that works out. Like, are they just truly, like we said, following their fey natures? Like, Woodwose is Woodwose because he is the most Fang clan there is. Is Spriggan because he's the most Earth clan of the Earth clan kind of a thing. Because honestly, from what we see of the Earth clan, I totally see it like his only worry is whether or not his bell or his treasure will be blown up. Yeah, that kind of follows what we know about the Earth clan. He's obsessed about his treasure. He at least, tries to get his people to move, but when they're stubborn like he is and won't budge, he's like, fuck them. Whatever. It's only when the idea that, like, Beryl could get something that's his that he's like, no, don't like that. Well, not all fairies are born from the planet. They do actually have that discussion earlier. Some of them are divine spirits, and some of them are out there. This is another thing that I don't remember if we've outright discussed yet, but there is a lot of a recurring theme that fairies don't have religion. Mm-hmm. Even though writing-wise, the prophecy and the treatment of Aisken, like the Child of Prophecy, is, like I said, very vaguely Christ-like, which obviously makes sense. A lot of Christian stuff was backported into the Arthurian mythology. The Grail cycle got bolted on, kind of out of nowhere. Until, like, the medieval romances, there's no actual reason for the Holy Grail to be anywhere near England. It's just kind of a thing some people thought was cool. So,
everything is fan fiction.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of interesting back and forth. Another thing, Percival hasn't appeared on screen, though he's been mentioned. There's a lot of stuff going on, and so we'll be happy to dig into this next week, because there's still all the real... I mean, Tristan versus Tamlin Gawain is pretty good, but, like, all the real shit hasn't even happened yet. We are still expositing. So there's some heavy stuff in there. But yeah, so that's the end of our note point.
Yeah. Alright, where was our break? Heck.
Where we were going to start last week before, again, we were interrupted by Gods and Men, was we had just finished Fragment 3 Sheffield with Winky Fu. And we're going to move into Section 6, Wales, number 1.
Okay. Alright, see, this is why I'm glad I took copious notes, because I can't actually remember all this that well. Oh, right. So we start section 6, Wales, part 1. So while traveling along the way, we crash into 6 fairies that say another one of their member has been abducted and taken to a hidden, out-of-the-way location, sounding like the most ambushy ambush that ever ambushed. Artoria runs off immediately.
Go ahead.
I am very weirded out a little bit by this, of how Artoria survived so long. Oh, I didn't actually mention this, but we stopped because we accidentally almost flipped the carriage because we ran into these guys, and Artoria was just like, "Hey, I feel like something's about to happen."
Yeah, she gets vibes and stuff.
You were about to say something else, Omega?
Yeah, my note on this was just Artoria walks into purple circles and is surprised when enemies pop out. She jumps at the chance to just get into this and do the thing.
This is something that definitely gets mentioned. Artoria is kind of this meek girl who just go from 0 to 100 in an instant.
Yeah, the weird thing is, because of the way fairies work, I didn't think about this in context, but it comes up later in some Act 2 stuff. By our reckoning, she's only 16 years old, right? But remember, she's a fairy, so she's been this way for 16 years flat. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that has influenced her at all, because technically, she has 16 years worth of memories of being her, but also she's been this way her whole life, I think. So,
yeah.
Anyway. NFF ambush!
We get into a fight with some NFF beasts, and this is the first fight, I believe, where we get Muramasa as support. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because here he is actually an alter ego, and he has a unique skill, Godslayer. It's very wild. Also, much like a lot of the other interesting NPCs, he does have just subtitles for his lines, which I think makes more sense in this case because I'm pretty sure we're never getting an alter ego Muramasa with Godslayer. Yeah.
And he does actually say different lines for his skills activation and cards. For one thing, he will. I love that one of his skill lines is just, "So what if they're fairies?" If you pay close attention, his specific voice lines will let you know some of the deities he is fused with. Almost assuredly, for instance, one of the deities that the alien god added to him has to be Susanoo, because one of his NP card themes specifically says, "Got Kushinada Hime in my hair," which is a reference to Susanoo slaying Orochi. Mm. He turned Kushinada Hime into a comb and hid her in his hair. Then he got that motherfucker drunk.
Yep.
But yeah, I think we have a couple of other notes in here. But yeah, Muramasa actually being an alter ego for this part threw me a little bit, because it's completely different class strengths, right?
Yes.
So I was like, oh, right, he's actually an alter ego, for realsies. This is different, new, fresh, sometimes not helpful. But yeah, so we solve our NFF problem.
Yep, we solve it. Moving on with our actual recap. So after the battle, we actually found out it was actual trouble. Apparently, these 7 dwarf-like fairies had apparently bought a bargain set in Gloucester.
Yeah, Coyan sold the 7 dwarves some trash mobs.
But as is appropriate after using support Muramasa, we actually talk about his kid a little bit. Turns out alter ego Muramasa has been fine-tuned to kill gods. He said he's been fused with a blind god of war responsible for Ragnarok, and another which is just wish fulfillment. So, Tyr? Question mark?
The general is Had or Hodr, the blind god who shot Baldur.
Oh, who shot Baldur. Okay.
Yeah. Baldur's brother, who was blind.
Okay.
Which is technically a god slayer, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, no, yeah. Why did I think Tyr started Ragnarok?
Because of God of War Ragnarok, probably. He's also involved in some of the other setup shit.
I know. Maybe it's because I was thinking about Fenrir. I guess I just don't got my Norse mythology all lined up, because I do remember, the mistletoe arrow that, Loki shenanigans again.
Yeah. But, the wish fulfillment is probably the Susanoo part, because remember how he's obsessed with the Kusanagi.
Mm-hmm. But we continue talking about the camp, and when asked how Lembo's final moment, the only appropriate response is, "Like a bitch."
Once again, same brain cell. My note on this part of the story was, if you ever meet Limbo, tell him I said, "like a bitch."
Muramasa is just like, all right, I'm just not going to pretend I didn't hear that, and, turns over.
Yeah.
So, as, we wind down for the night, it becomes apparent that there is someone watching/following us, and they seem a decent sort, if not the most capable, and I sense adorableness in our future.
Foreshadowing.
So we make it to the autumn woods of Wales, and there are many cute and innocent fairies here. We can't understand them, they're very bug-like, but they are also very welcoming. It's actually quite cute. We get settled in, but then some black dogs appear and a stagnant one. And I'm gonna be real quick, the stagnant one's King of the Storm, plus 2 stacks of half HP guns was kind of bullshit for such a nothing fight.
Yeah, I think that might actually wrap around to some other shit.
Maybe.
Some exploration later. If I got a note for that, if it actually comes back. But yeah, my notes was like, there was a really strong enemy mixed in there for some reason. It's very weird.
Yeah. This actually happens later, and I realized there was a theme, and it kind of made me go, ugh.
Yeah. There's some...
But...
Like I said, I don't think there's a lot of filler to this Lostbelt technically, but there's a couple of subplots in these fights that probably could be skipped.
Yeah. Black dogs are apparently evil fairy-eating fairies, one of 2 type. The other type was sealed by the Fang clan, but apparently it cursed them.
Yeah.
Talk about this and that. We get some sweet treats, and we find out that apparently processing food is illegal here? Not entirely sure what that was all about, but I guess it has something to do with like that same mindset that forbids people from being used as like, literal, beasts of burden and whatnot. I don't know. But after dinner that night, we talk about fae families. Apparently, there are actually no actual families aside from ones that the fairies decide on them themselves. As fairies die, another is born, sharing the same characteristics and considered the successor to the previous. In rare cases, the successor may be born before the previous one dies, and these can be referred to as children, as in the case with Morgan's daughter, Tamlin, Tristan, and Artoria. Specifically, in this case, it's because of their magecraft, which is the qualifier before becoming the King of Fairy Britain.
Yeah. I've got similar in my notes here. Basically, fairy facts, fairies don't have a real family, but similar fairies who manifest around the same time with similar appearance might call themselves sibling. It's just kind of almost like another bit of the LARP thing they do.
Yeah.
And the generation, they manifest in generations, so a successor might be called son or daughter, even if they don't technically pass anything on. But it does say that generations should be similar in aptitude and appearance, so they just have a new purpose, but they're the same type of fairy in the same sort of role. So this is why, this is a thing I think we see with some of the clan heads later, why some of them are said to be related to previous heads and may inherit names, appearances, etc. This may be important later. Also, it is kind of funny for the story to be like calling Artoria Morgan's daughter, even though, that's not normally how the Arthuriana works. They're, you would say sisters in this context. Fairy stuff.
Fairies and stuff. So that night we have a real talk with Oberon, who we talk about a lot of things here, of our guilt, our savior complex, and a lot about what's going on right now that's going to happen, even though we are not the protagonist this time. Like, I don't think I could actually have probably written down here what we talked about, because it was a bit thought-provoking about how we constantly feel the need that we must be the one to rush into danger, because if we're not the one doing it, then, who is?
Yeah. My note just says moth talk, but there's a lot of deep work here.
There's a lot of deep work here. Again, I feel like if I wanted to give like the full breadth of this, I would actually have to have parsed it all out.
We would literally have to quote Oberon, because Oberon is interesting because sometimes this, I think, is like part of his mischievousness, his deviousness, but sometimes in general, I think his mind just works this way. Oberon is like whip quick with changing topics. Like, if a conversation is going in a direction that he's like, either because it's accidentally stumbled that way or deliberately he wants to shift gears, he shifts gears very fast. So we walk through a couple of different topics here. I think the most interesting thing, because he's talking about, Oberon frames it as, we're not the protagonists of this story, we're not the lead role in this play. I'm like, so Oberon, are he thinking of us as more of like the Greek chorus, the observers, or does Oberon think we're the Deus Ex Machina?
I think we're the observers. Because, like, honestly, it seems a little weird to think of it this way, but if we were to, like, frame this in, like, ye old, like, Arthurian mythology, I kind of feel like we're in the Merlin role here. Get your caster jokes out now, but we're mostly there to support Artoria and get her what she needs to get the job done while, passing maybe some sage advice along the way. Or, in most of our case, doing something completely ballsy that just makes Artoria go, that's rad.
Yeah. This is how she's going to unlock all of her 6 fairy clan fighting styles. She just sees us do a cool move. That's rad. But yeah. And I honestly, part of this question I ask because I'm not sure if Oberon knows what he thinks. Because I feel like, again, he plays a lot of stuff close to the vest. I asked this question because, like, does Oberon think we're the Deus Ex Machina? Because I agree. We're definitely, like, I would say, we're kind of like the Greek chorus. We're here to let you know information, exposition, for commentary, but we're not really, like, a part of the story, especially at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we do eventually kind of take it on ourselves to get a little more involved, but we'll talk about that.
But when we start talking about things that we want or things that we're looking for, we do ask Oberon what he wants. And he says that as foolish as impossible it may be, Oberon is looking for Titania, the only woman that, could actually stand him.
Yes. Because as discussed earlier, Titania is completely fictional.
Mm-hmm.
The name was absolutely completely made up by Shakespeare. Though, honestly, like, just in a general commentary, because this will keep coming back, the archetypal character of the fairy queen is really interesting because she is very often not named, probably for, spookum reasons.
Yeah, no, names have power.
People don't want to be naming that name, so there are probably plenty of mythological fairies who you could tack the name Titania on. Would they actually be Titania?
I don't
There's
know.
a lot of stuff with
like...
names. We'll be talking about it later.
Sorry, I'm trying to think of like some of a sample servant for someone. I can't think of it. It's not impossible for a fictional character to become a servant. Like look at
Sherlock Holmes. This is a debate we have. Are you real or not, man?
We don't know, but Jekyll and Hyde. Heck, I just had a third one. Phantom.
Oh yeah, Phantom, very much. Phantom, literally the Phantom of the Opera, right?
Mm-hmm.
Frankenstein's monster,
mm-hmm.
Seminal work of literature. Again, a lot of this is the literary agent hypothesis, but because a lot of these narratives are framed as like outside ones, but that also doesn't always matter. Like characters from, like, for instance, Dracula, which if you haven't read Dracula sometime. It's written very, very specifically, but the original Dracula is pitched as letters and diary notes from, like, John Harker to Mina and stuff like that. Like, that is actually written like it's a piece of work that, Bram Stoker dug up. So, like, there's a lot of interesting notes here.
Carmilla is another one.
Yep, Carmilla is a novella.
So, no, like, as long as I think there is something to base it on, no, that could totally be Titania in the throne, but I don't know if it would be Oberon's Titania,
Yeah. And honestly, that's probably a lot of, like, Oberon has some arc stuff that we're gonna continue to dig into. So, yeah, there's definitely, I think there's more to explore here. But this is important for plot stuff, and also is the punchline to a joke later.
But we go to bed after that, and we start the morning with a light practice bout. We talk about this and that. We learned that Artoria is definitely a grandpa's girl.
Yeah, I put in my notes, Caster is jealous of our grandpa time.
But while talking to her, we do decide that we are going to commit to supporting Artoria and her cause. Because before this, we were kind of running around not knowing really what we're doing because we're looking for MASH. But we're going around seeing that things are a little wonky here.
As always, the Lostbelt is absolutely fucked. But the Lostbelt is also fucked in the cosmic sense. Like, this is a point we keep reiterating. We don't need to do anything to fuck over this Lostbelt. This Lostbelt is already pre-fucked in a cosmic sense. The tree is gone. Hypothetically, at some point, it should just go away. So we don't need to, like, wage war on it. So, yeah, a lot of the time we're just like, well, what the fuck do we do? I guess we look for MASH, but then we don't find MASH, so what the fuck are we doing? And then, like I said, at this point, we just, like, yeah, no, we just need to commit to Artoria's bit and actually, like, go through with it. And she has to go all over Fairy Britain to ring all the bells if she's going to be the child of prophecy, so we'll just tag along with her, and MASH we'll find MASH along the way. My notes for this are just, light party. Shing!
But Oberon's decided to hear this and say he's going to go out and gather information and unleashes his next form. Writer Oberon, also known as Robin Goodfellow, says it's time to save Norwich. He is so small, so portable.
He comes in fun size, as I put down in my notes.
And that is the end of Section 6.
Yeah! Now it's time for the one you all want. I know. Out of Act 1 anyway. I think this is the one that people probably wanted us most to talk about.
Probably. So let's go to Section 7, Fragment 4, Sheffield 2.
I've read a pretty poignant start to this one. It says in my notes, and doom came to Sheffield. Or, as we say in the biz, because this was my note 2 weeks ago, and then it got worse. It keeps happening, chat.
So the narration begins mentioning that the Queen's army is being led by Tamlin Gareth, with Barrow being nasty, and that was only about a day before Sheffield is wiped off the map. So I am guessing that this is the thing that Tamlin Gareth did before she arrived at the human ranch.
Yeah, I think this lines up timeline-wise.
Yes. But we see Mash and her lovely sprite continuing to put Bogard off his game. But he tries to get inside her head and points out Mash's avoidance of the Black Barrel and how she doesn't like to fight. Eventually, he mentions the Caterpillar War, in which the only instance where the Queen screamed.
Yeah, this will come back later.
Apparently, Morgan doesn't like caterpillars?
Yeah, insectoids.
Insectoid.
But yeah, like I said, Bogard tries to psychoanalyze Mash here, but I think the thing he misses is he still doesn't really understand what the Black Barrel really is yet. So
I'm going to be honest, no one really does.
Yeah, I'm not even sure Sion, who built this copy of it, understands what the Black Barrel is for. It's one of Atlas's 7 forbidden super weapons they just have in their basement. Like, the reason why they are in their basement is because they're like, I don't fucking know what this does. What's this here for? He tries to like I said, get in Mash's head and figure out what the deal is. And I do agree with him that Mash doesn't like fighting, but that's not why she has put a mental block around the Black Barrel. It's because there's something wrong about the Black Barrel. It's a tool for killing gods. It is not natural or normal.
Not at all. But we learn a little bit more about previous events. Apparently, Tamlin Gareth became Tamlin Gareth in that war, and she lost her old name, redacted. Before that, she was detested as the daughter of the Black Dogs, and stopped fighting with Fang and Claw and took up the sword. She didn't like it to exploit the weak and expanded that the strong take more responsibility. Good old, noblesse oblige. And I think this usually lines up pretty much with what I've seen of her. Listen, I have a list of characters in this game. It goes from, and it's like, I love them to I'm gonna fucking kill them. Trust me, Tamlin Gareth still pretty much at the top. She's great. I love her.
Yeah, this can be a meta commentary about Tamlin Gareth in general, but out of all of the, named major characters, and especially so far the summonable characters I've met, she's not super high on my shit list. She does bad things, but almost always she is doing those things, either understanding what she's doing is quote-unquote wrong, because either it's overly destructive or not what Morgan asked her to do or whatever, and accepts the consequences of her actions immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's part of her, own personal worldview, which it has its flaws, but also is not as, it's not as self-serving and sadistic as, I don't know, Tamlin Tristan. Whose ethos so far, in what I've seen so far, again, remember, I'm not caught up all the way on Act 2, but so far, Tamlin Tristan's ethos is just, I'm princess, I'm baby, I want it. I want to do a murder, I do a murder. I want shoes, I get shoes. That's just how she's going.
Tamlin Gareth seems like the person who heard about, actual Knights of the Round Table and was like, yeah, I want to be that. Even when she's doing bad things, it's usually because she's, I feel like she's only doing them on orders.
Sorry. Robin said, I will not stand for the slander. I will sit. It's true. Like I said, I'm not all the way through the story. I'm sure there will be some level of wraparound, but I'm going to be honest. In a general level, I don't know how well I could stand or sit to be in the same room as someone who willingly enjoys the company of Barrel Goot, okay? That's a big litmus test right there.
Listen, I think I'm okay with Babo killing fairies because a lot of the time I'm starting to get to the point of fuck these fairies, just in general. But the Barrel Good is still just a hard fucking pass.
And there's so
listen, Morgan gets a pass because she did something that made me go.
Yeah, we will discuss Morgan at length at certain points. As we've discussed previously, so far she's not actually been on screen that much, so there's there. But God, fucking yeah, no, just with Tamlin Tristan is just that relationship with Beryl is just they're so gross together, and not in the normal gross way, but just they're such that couple. Just you have cute nicknames. Why? What's wrong with you? I mean, I think it does say something that Morgan doesn't stop her, but that's also because, again, like you said, the thing about, I don't care that she kills fairies, because, but, eh.
Honestly, again, I think I've mentioned this before, I'm getting the succinct expression that Morgan only cares about Britain, capital B Britain.
Yeah.
She doesn't care about anything other than that, including the people living on Britain.
Slight future shade here, but strictly speaking, Morgan seems to understand how this system of ferries works, and I believe she is not wrong in her assumption that so long as Britain still exists, there will still be purposes, capital P, and thus there will be more ferries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Studio Mega, I can forgive the ferry master, but he treated the company of barrels a step too far. True.
Correct.
Defects. Correct. Yes. No. And well, I mean, listen, if you ever are in a scene with Beryl, you understand. It really must be the fact that Morgan on some level covers for his ass. Or that's why he's always hanging around Tamlin Tristan, because she is the queen's adoptive daughter, so you can't just cap her. Because, I'm very surprised nobody has punched his ticket already. The only person in this Lostbelt who seems to like Beryl is Babo. Okay? Everybody else is just oh, it's that guy. Ugh. Anyway, we have so much further to go in this segment alone.
All right. So, while we're having all this talk, an alarm goes off, and the Queen's army is already here. Unfortunately, it's not just Tamlin Gawain has shown up, but also Tristan and Lancelot. This immediately goes from a potentially winnable battle to a hopeless one, and Bogard decides to use the Black Barrel, a decision that the narrator says was the worst one. The map OST changes here.
Yeah, I caught that too, and the things they do with this OST, and I think I'm not 100% sure, I have to give it my ear again. Spoilers, like I said, I was not feeling very well yesterday, and I focused on working on Tears of the Kingdom. So I know that I'm further ahead of Lucky, so I've not been going very ham on the Lostbelt, but I think there are variants of this map theme later as well. I'm not sure the piano accompaniment was there in the first version they used. We'll get back into it later because you have some comments about it as well, but this map theme, this second theme they use a couple times in Act 1 and later all throughout Act 2 is a thing. There is a sense about this, and when they do that switch, they've gotten me a couple times. It's that moment of just oh no, don't, no, no. We'll see if we get to my next. I had a very literal in Act 2. I've so far had at least one very literal. No, wait. Where I was just no, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me, map effects. But yeah. Anyway, once we go into the next pip, today we learned the Black Barrel is not a toy.
It is not. Bogard has gone mad with fucking power and has made Mash cry, an unforgivable offense in my books. But she and Habetrot decide to help the townspeople escape, while Bogard continues to fire the Black Barrel. I kind of wish I had read more about it on the effects it was having on him and the people around him. I didn't think about it because I was in a fucking mood.
Yeah, but no, this is why I say it's not a toy, because we, as the player, understand what it takes to fire the Black Barrel once. Every time we fired the Black Barrel in Olympus, we had to use all our command spells, and also almost always we took a nap afterward.
A psychosomatic nap.
Yes. I believe the first time we did it, we were at a very real chance we would have died without Olympian medical intervention. And Bogard is just woo, guns, blam, blam, baby. Not understanding that every time he fires that, he is sucking up the vital energy of not just himself, but all of his dudes.
Yeah, I think they just talk about how some of his allies were just vanishing around him, but he couldn't see because he was just going ham with it.
Yeah. And even then, I don't think he's using this thing's full potential, because keep in mind, Gawain takes one of these. Mm-hmm. Everybody around her, and it fucking dies, the gatehouse is evaporated, and she just kind of okay, I tickled a little. I'm not happy about that. Yes, that's a good way to put it, Robin. Bogard found out about fuck around and find out. We are currently in the find out stage.
Yeah. But we cut away from Bogard at this point, and we go down to the rear gate, which has been blocked off because Bogard doesn't want people fleeing. Because, as we have definitely learned, fairies are very selfish. If they have an opportunity to escape, they just fucking will. So yes. Bogard's plan was to seal the back gates and keep them from leaving so they'd be forced to fight.
Also, I do believe there is a tactical point here that he brings up. It might be later. Basically, if he left the gate unsealed, there would be a stampede out of it. and that would immediately turn into a stampede into it. If unarmed civilian fairies opened the gate and fled without coordination, the Queen's Knights would just swoop in.
Yeah.
So, like, fairies are weird, y'all. Like we said, they're not... In general, I feel like the fairies are bad at self-preservation. Like, or I should say long-term self-preservation. Like, Bogard is one of the few guys we meet who actually thinks tactically, and of course he thinks tactically in a very self-serving, egotistical way, very self-centered way, but he thinks about shit long-term, except when he's high on, Black Barrel fumes. But, he's trying. The regular fairies are just like, what's that? I could, the die? Get me out of here. Or, alternatively, they're like, what's that? I could die? But all my stuff's here. That, like I said, self-preservation is not high on their list of things. I think it's because they're not actually alive, but we'll discuss that more as we keep going. Fairies are not, strictly speaking, mortal.
So...
Yeah, they check out the rear gate.
Yeah, we check out the rear gate, Rab and Wog are there, and they have a plan to get it open. But before that happens, Mash appears and declares herself the Tamlin Galahad, and funnily enough, her shield seems to agree with her. We do some battles here, and I actually found this interesting. In that battle, her name does actually change to Tamlin Galahad. I was like, oh.
Yeah, she takes that mantle and run with it. I put in my notes, the also thing to include is that she declares herself not just Tamlin Galahad, but also the Knight of Sheffield, both of which might as well be true. Also, I have to say, this is a me thing, but while we did get access to her proper NP again before, I'm not afraid to admit, I get a little emotional when Mash's original NP with theme and all plays in this context. Even though she's calling herself Tamlin Gawain now, our girl Mash hasn't been, like, right with herself in this way for a long time. And there's just something about, her line is simple. It's just, that which heals all wounds and grudges, our glorious homeland. But, like, in this context, it cuts me deep. I've been playing since launch. I remember the build-up to this the first time, right?
Yeah.
So, like, to have it come back in this moment is like, ooh, it all would be hitting different. But yeah,
but
that
after
stuff. Yeah.
That is this. Tamlin Lancelot, she lands to, fuck up the rear there because she is fast and agile and is so small. Oh, so small.
Yeah, this is our first and only time in Act 1 we actually meet her, which is wild if you think about it.
We get into a fight and, boy, eating 4 MPs back to back is rough.
Yeah, no, I like that you have to lose this one. That said, I think they had to make her fire NP every turn because otherwise... Oh, I managed to stack so much damage cut in this fight that at one point, Tamlin Lancelot crit Habetrot for 4 damage. Not 400 damage. Not 4,000 damage. 4.
Yeah, no, like...
So
there's some strong gains there. I'm like, God damn.
OG Mash at, like, level 100, 10, 10, 10, because I'm pretty sure she's level 100 in this fight or something, or 90. She's strong. And story support, Habetrot, that is a old-school art stall team. Let me slap Jean in there? No, I'm never dying. Your motherfucking life ends 30 turns from now. But also, I want to bring up a fun thematic point. Once again, the girl with the shield must fight the light of the lake.
Oh.
It's happened a couple of times, and we're back here. It's a shame Mash has amnesia, because otherwise she'd probably be very upset. Would Mash think of Tamlin Lancelot as her little big sister? Because, like, at the heart of it, she's not really Lancelot either. Because, like, meme-wise, we treat regular Lancelot as kind of like Mash's deadbeat dad. Food for thought, chat. Think about it.
Yep. Like I said, you have to face that. You have to lose that fight. And Mash's strength cannot hold up against Tamlin Lancelot, who seems to know what the Round Table and who Galahad is. Just, let's soak that in. But we are saved by the wolf, who is now a familiar-looking blue-haired caster named Grimir the Sage.
It's the boy!
Mask uses this chance to run back to the castle to save Bogard.
Yeah, so I put this in my notes in all caps. It's the boy, the Hound of Kulan. Also, hey, chat. Hope you like names. Every time a character has a weird name, I like to write a note. So, Grimir is one of Odin's by-names. It comes from the same etymology as the word for mask in Old Norse.
Interesting.
Yeah. Man, Grimir the Sage.
Runes, baby. Interesting enough, though, even though after Mash takes off, the two do talk a bit. Apparently they know each other. Lancelot calls Grimir a servant, and he responds with how they are both from outside Fairy Britain. So, file that away and, key information. But back to Mash, we get back to the castle, and it is fucking ruined with Beryl and Tamlin Tristan torturing Bogard in the throne room. Mash arrives and immediately understands that Farrell is a fuckboy and should be yeeted.
Yeah. So, couple of notes here. First of all, one, music choice here is great. I actually had to go back and go into the tank and look this out there. I instantly recognized it as an LB4 piece because of, like, the fucking sitar. But I dug it up. This is called Deep Dark Power. It's from OST 4. I'm pretty sure this got reused in Heian-kyo a couple of times for Doman, but it was originally from LB4, and it might have been one of his themes there. But their use of that, like, the dark, sinister instrumentation for Beryl and Tamlin Tristan here really works. But yeah, no, I appreciate that, like, she immediately is like, you, fuck you. Him, that guy, fuck him in particular.
Yeah. I do believe she does smack him with her shield, and he gets sent into a wall.
Yeah, I think from the way the sound effects were, I think the impression is that she just body checks him with her shield into a wall and holds him there. And probably would have crushed him if some stuff hadn't happened.
And that stuff is that they hold Bogard over the edge and basically use his life as a hostage for them to escape.
Oh, actually, I think Tamlin Tristan tries to bind up Mesh first. That's why in my notes I have also in all caps, "You cannot contain my Kohai!" Because I think that's when she slamma jams him. They try to, like, stop her up, and then she's just like, no.
I did not write that down, so I cannot remember. So
Chad will double check me.
Double check.
This is one of those rare cases where I wish more of this was a little bit of an animated cutscene, because we do get some better, like, VFX and stuff later. This one is all just sprites and sound effects and a little bit of, like, overlays, so it's hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Bogard is hostage.
But Beryl, plays fucking mind games and Beryl is just tossed over the edge, and Mash, as they predicted, jumps to save his life. All according to plan, so they could take the black barrel, except it's no longer there.
Where did it go?
Tamlin Tristan didn't see where it happened to it because she was so keen on watching him, a fact that Beryl isn't too keen on. But he's gonna let Mash go ahead and do what she wants to do, thinking it will hurt her more in the end. Also, apparently Morgan had given orders to leave her alone. Mash is able to catch and cushion Bogard's fall and keep her from dying immediately, and he requests to be taken to the back gate. Habetrot appears soon after, and apparently doesn't want Mash calling her a happy cat because it makes her too happy.
By the way, if it hasn't been clear, I'm fairly certain this was Habenyan in
yeah, I'm pretty sure too. I remember hearing those jokes. I think happy cat's a pretty good.
I mean, it works because, like, obviously, like, tabby cat, happy cat, the puns work, and she still makes the meow sounds with her NP card.
I love it so much.
So yeah.
But during all of this, Mash has run out of strength and cannot carry Bogard. So instead, he picks her up like a good would a bride, and they slowly make their way to the back gate.
In my first run of notes, I missed my chance to write down a "don't lose your way" joke here for the first time, but now it's been a couple weeks, so I made sure to write it down later. But that does seem appropriate with this kind of conflict, and specifically, like, both obviously, like you said, they kind of, there's references to them making their way around, but also Beryl's comment about Mash that letting her go her own way will cause her more pain later in his estimation, but also it's just the only thing to do. Mash, don't lose your way.
Mm-hmm. They need to escape, but the fairies are now panicking. Lord Bogard takes command and gets them to flee, but with the gates open, it'll only be moments before the Queen's army catches up to them. Then somehow, the gates close behind them. This was actually, I think, a very good scene, talking about how Bogard is moving, calmly, confidently, acting every bit, the commander he's supposed to be. But in actuality, he is like, 9/10 of the way just fucking gone already. It's like, oh, God. He was always kind of an asshole, but man, like, I loved, like, the characterization here.
Yeah, let's make no bones. Bogard is an asshole. He was planning on sexually assaulting my Kohai.
Yeah.
But he's like, for a fairy, he's a very human kind of asshole.
Yeah.
Everything he does is to serve the motivation that is like, no, I'm the lord of this castle. All these guys follow me. We're going to do this in, like, orderly. Of course, I have to consummate with my bride. And, I have to have a bride, too. It's like, we just do this, okay? It's all about appearances and ego to him. That comes from a place of meaning, right? Like, he is this way because he thinks he would be better suited to lead the Fang clan than another guy. And I'm going to be honest, from what I've seen of that other guy, I think Bogart was right.
Yeah, I think Bogart falls under the alas, poor villain.
Yeah. What? Just as he's starting to show character development, he unfortunately snuffs it for his crimes, and you go, oh, that's sad.
It is sad.
But he's got a little bit of juice left. There's
he
some
got
other
a little
stuff
bit
happening.
His juice. But like I said, we don't know how they're gonna, stop the army, and the gates close behind them. And at this point, Mash realizes something, and, half crying, reaches over Bogard and starts wildly waving to someone, thanking them for so many things. We have a small flashback back to Rob and Wag, who had stayed behind on the walls to help close the gates, specifically to help everyone here and to help Mash. They talk about a lot of the feelings that they have and all the things that they have done, and decide that at the end, they didn't regret it. And in their last moments are happily waving to Mash in the distance, shouting all sorts of encouragement to her. I'm tearing up right now just thinking about it as I put in my sub-bulleted, times Lucky has cried 1.
Yeah, I had, talking about this, thinking back, I had to take a couple of deep breaths to make sure I keep my composure here. I need some 07s in chat.
Yeah.
Salute the boys. Salute Robin Wag.
Oh.
I think actually somebody in chat brought up that Beryl had killed. Beryl mentioned to Mash he had killed Winky. I'm pretty sure that's when she decided, I'm gonna crush this man. I'm gonna crush him.
Probably, yeah, because I think she asked what happened to him, and he just, kind of...
He barrels at her, and then Mash just thinks, I'm gonna crush his skull. Mash, crush his skull.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God, but no, seriously, I was tearing up just a little bit just thinking about it. Oh. But after that, they take refuge in a cave that Bogard had set up as a safe house. Bogard realizes what he wanted all along before he breathes his last. He just wanted to go home and be with people who liked him. That's all he really wanted.
This is another theme, I think, that comes up. It's a little subtler than the others in this Lostbelt, but home is a big deal. A lot of these... Because this is the thing about fairies, right? Fairies have names, those are important, but fairies also have purposes. Fairies who completely lose their purpose turn into Moors. They get about as like self-destructively dead as you can get as a fairy, right? Fairies that complete their purposes do actually apparently just die. It was mentioned earlier, right? Talking about how the succession works. A fairy who completes his purpose will like go to sleep one day and basically pass away, and a new fairy will spring up in his place. So home is a big deal. Some characters are looking for where they belong. Some characters are protecting where they think they belong. Some characters have no place where they belong. It's kind of one of Castoria's big deals that her home village in Tintagel was destroyed. She has nowhere to go back to, right? So Bogart kind of puts a capstone of that, of just realizing, like, yeah, it was all part of his plans to, like, show Morgan that he deserved to rule the Fang clan and maybe all of Britain, but also he just wanted a place to call his own, and he wanted to make it a cool place for people to be,
Why put so much effort into Sheffield, why he had a plan to go get Norwich back. All that good stuff. But after that, Mash gains her determination and decides to save Norwich, with the Sage and Habetrot going with her. And thus, the Knight to Sheffield, and decide to descend into the underground, into Fairy Britain's ley line system that will let them travel undetected.
The Knight of Sheffield sets out for Norwich. And we'll catch up with that one later.
Yep. Now, we move on to Section 8, Drachia River. Is it Drachia?
Yeah, I think it's... this is actually a Celtic thing. Yeah, I can't find those notes anymore, but I think it has to be Drachia, yeah.
Yeah? Alright. Well, so Oberon has zipped around Fairy Britain in 2 days and explains everything to the group. Da Vinci complains it was like she was treated to a slideshow of someone's vacation, which it kind of was. Peaceful, dangerous, peaceful, gobsmacked. Oof on the phrasing of that last one.
Yeah. We get our little Oberon tour.
Mm-hmm. Oberon seems a little weirded out, because apparently they might have run into a powerful ally in Sheffield, but no one is there anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's distracted by Sheffield, almost like he thought maybe we'd find some cool friends there or something.
So we make plans to save Norwich, tease Artoria a bit, but lo and behold, that character that's been following us slides into the scene. It's Gareth!
Gareth power slides into frame.
And they are adorable. Gareth joins the party! Doo-doo-doo.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. Specifically, we decided to go to Norwich because Castoria needs some chivos under her belt. Otherwise, the clan heads won't take her seriously, as we've seen. A child of prophecy who has accomplished nothing doesn't get your fast pass to ring bells.
Gareth goes on to explain that they don't know who they are, but they know they want to be a knight for a good king and help people.
Yeah, almost immediately I feel safe to say that this has got to be, and it's basically confirmed later, but this is Lostbelt Gareth. She has a unique skill set here, and she has some unique skill lines as we see later. She seems kind of like dazed and confused. It's a little bit like servants we've seen summoned by the land. Pretty sure she says confirmation that she is a fairy later, but it's I think a similar effect. This is obviously the Gareth of the Lostbelt 6, not actual regular Gareth.
Mm. So we have a nothing fight, and Gareth has subtitles, as Meg already mentioned. This Gareth does have unique skills from usual Gareth. I didn't actually write down what they were, though.
It's like intuitive Gareth, something about her will to fight, stuff like that. Because she doesn't have, normal Gareth's knightly attributes, like Batcon or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Also, we have a surprisingly hard mini-boss fight again. Side note, because, these are the things that pop up to me. Okiku is actually a famous yokai ghost story, and was actually the inspiration for the modern Sadako of Ring fame. We've been going, I won't necessarily go into what the legend it is, but it's very famous for the ghost crawling out of the well, counting things, and, cursing people.
I do want to say, my note for this fight is, in all italics, for the first wave of the fight anyway, is, this is not a cat. Now, that last one's a cat. But before that, that's not a cat. Keep your eyes on our ratios of cats to not cats.
Yeah, but that's the reason why in that fight you see the Tamacat Shadow counting cans, and then before she gets to 10, something happens. But something that I did know is interesting, that you don't actually defeat her. They stay, and morning comes, she gutses to 1 and just dashes off. I was like, But we continue traveling. We're having a leisurely good time to avoid attention and pass by Oxford. While it is a plot point, we can't handle it right now. We'll have to fight there eventually.
Yeah. It's
a lot of
restaurants. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's Woodwose' human thing that he likes to copy his cuisine. But we also very distinctly learn Woodwose is not like Aurora or Murray, and he is a firm hardliner for the Queen. So if we want to go to Oxford, we're gonna have to rumble there, like you said. Oberon is pretty straight up like, if you go there, we will fight.
Yeah, apparently the Fang clan had taken Oxford from the Wing clan, killing them all.
Yes, we get explicit confirmation that the Fang clan wiped out the Wing clan in an act of territorial aggression, and Murian may be the last Wing clan fairy in existence.
Mm-hmm. We do get a little bit of Woodrose. Learn a little bit about how he ticks.
He's that boss.
He reminds me of a child upset that he isn't getting new toys, so they break the ones they have. It's he descended. He went up my shit list very quickly.
Yeah, like I said, Woodrose is that boss. Morgan is not that boss. Her retainers regularly fail her in their quest to kill or capture us because duh. And Morgan is just like, yes, yeah. Interesting. Anyway, I have 5 other things to do today. Whereas Woodrose is like, if you told him, Woodrose, we failed to capture the foreign mage and the child of prophecy, he would be like, you what?
Kills the kid next to you, and then screams how everyone around him is incompetent and he can't find any good help. And I'm just like, Jesus.
Yeah.
The man who shoots the messenger.
Yeah.
So, we spend another night, and guess what? It's another battle with a famous Japanese ghost, Oiwa. This one I don't know quite as well, but I will skip on this one. But I did have the feeling, it's like, they have, at this point, we have 2 out of the 3 most famous Japanese ghost story. Are we going to have to fight Otsuye next? I would like to remind everybody that I wrote this in the moment.
Yeah. We take a lot of these notes as they come.
Mm-hmm.
Now, by the way, for this fight, though, I was like, no, those are actually cats. There were actual cats in here. They may have had human heads, but they were cats. Also, I think at this point, I was like, mandatory NPC picks does wonders for my cost cap.
It is kind of wild.
Fit so many 5-star CEs in this baby.
Slap the hood.
Yeah.
While wondering about this, we go past Camelot and the Pit. It's a location where sinister things are thrown away. When a fairy usually loses their name, they usually just end up wandering in the western woods, but if it's something truly unwanted or in the way, it's tossed into the pit. That sounds like just a place full of bad juju, by the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, there's a reason why, like, humans would instinctively have that response about pits. We have myths and legends and, like, general vibes about, like, pit burials and dumping grounds and stuff, and just like, no, that's not good.
That's not good.
Also, you've also got a bullet point on this, but I caught this as well. The Great Pit is as deep as the Challenger Deep. It's, 10 kilometers? Yeah, I think
Yeah, about 10 kilometers. That's 6 miles and some change.
Yeah, Challenger Deep, that's the deepest part of the Marianas Trench. That is the deepest place on the surface of the Earth. It's underwater, but you know what I mean, right? Like, it's not covered by a mountain or anything. That's fucking deep. And Muramasa got thrown in there. It's okay, he didn't hit the ground.
Didn't he say it still took him like 3 days to get out?
Yeah, he managed to catch himself on the wall, but he did have to go back around. How full is the pit? Not very full. It's 10 kilometers deep.
Wait, that means what's happening to the stuff that gets thrown in there?
It goes way down. Listen, we'll discuss Morgan's waste management problems later. I have questions about our infrastructure.
Da Vinci is surprised we know how deep the Mariana Trench is, and all I have is a vacant gaze as Spinal Coaster plays in the background. So, during all this, we learned that the bells were items left after the first 6 fairies died to let each clan honor their roots. I am willing, like, the more I learn about things, the more I'm willing to bet that there's a lie here somewhere.
Yeah. You're only to the Londinium, right? Yeah, no, you're pretty
Like,
close to seeing some stuff. There's some stuff.
I think I completed Londinium, I just haven't written notes on it. So I remember, so I saw some stuff there, I'm just like, wait a minute.
This follow-up after that.
Okay.
Let me scroll down to my notes. Is it actually? Okay, no. After Londinium is Norwich 2. And some stuff. Basically, to put this in context for Lucky and to let the chat know what I'm thinking about. So, the fragments thing, that's not going away. Now that Mash is away from us again, fragments will come back. So,
okay.
Our non-linear storytelling will come back to us. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that some of this, like you said, there has to be some lie, some misremembering or something. Like, just because fairies can live like 2,000 years or whatever, it doesn't mean that they do, and means that they've perfectly transmitted all information.
Well, it doesn't make fucking sense with these damn these bells. Like, if they're from like the first fairies, why are they in bell towers? We didn't get human towns until the New Queen era.
Yeah, and it may be that they were put in those locations later.
Yeah, but then what were they doing before that? I'm just like.
Yeah, there's a reason why this Lostbelt has a timeline. There's a lot of layers here.
So, like, this is the point where I'm starting to go, wait a fucking minute.
Yeah.
We take a moment to...
That will definitely continue. I mean, you already know one of the big, because that's when we have our tea party with Morgan. There's another big, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Hold the fuck on.
I know we are. So, I'm looking at this. I don't remember this. We take a moment to talk about who people in proper human history are and how we like it.
Oh, yeah, no. I think I remember this. Not this exact conversation, but this is a thing Castoria does frequently where we just fill time and explain about how stuff is different, from here. And just, we talk a little about, like, what people are like, what their daily lives are like. And, Castoria is just like, neat. Anyway.
Anywho. So, while talking, we come up on a bridge that's super big and super out of commission. We can't use it.
This bridge is fucked.
This bridge is fucked. Even though we have, Super Servant Muramasa on our side who probably could jump the thing in a single bound. Others can't do that. And we can't cross it because it is the home of the... I already forgot how to pronounce this.
Yeah, I think it's
Drake.
Yeah.
I was going to say Draka. Drake, a type of night caller that floats whatever you want down the river and then pulls you down to drown when you grab it. Despite this fact, fairies seem to gather by the shore in order to get free goods.
Yeah, they're wish-granting fairies. They lure you in with false treasures and they drown your ass, like fairies do. These may be the most normal-ass fairies I think we've seen on Lostbelt.
Mm.
What's that? You live in a body of water and you want to drown me? Okay, must be Tuesday.
Yep. We try to posture that this will never work on us, but Gareth wants a life-sized Artoria pillow. Red Rabbit wants
says, Gareth, no, the merchandise!
Red Rabbit wants a 2-meter carrot. What Artoria want isn't actually mentioned. They try to get us with a single grail, but when that doesn't work, they do float us an entire crate of grails. Muramasa doesn't actually want anything, and Oberon merely gets a sign that says, sold out.
Oh, you forgot one. They get little Da Vinci with a crate full of dinosaur fossils.
Oh,
which is shit.
I did write it down, but I forgot.
Yeah, you forgot to mention that bullet point, yeah. Which I put in my notes, I wrote that down as just foreshadowing. Because we were setting up for our upcoming summer. Also, Oberon gets sold out. I'm fairly certain that's the Drake telling him that they're sold out of Titanius.
Yeah. By the way, most of these were followed by splashing sounds.
Yes.
As we go into the river. We fight the Drake, slamming it pretty hard.
Yes. As I put in my notes, Super Orion denies the watery tot.
And afterwards, Grandpa uses Grandpa Punch.
This is also after we actually get out of the river, where one of our more frequently screen-crapped lines is where he's like, "How did you idiots defeat 5 Lostbelts?" Grandpa, I ask myself that very frequently.
But as we fought the Drake at the bottom of the river, it seemed lost and confused and has a couple forms we fight before the true of it. It fades away, still looking for something. It's baby. We realize something here, that no fairy here knows what a baby is. But then we almost drown in the river. Yep. But then we almost drown in the river after the Fey Domain is gone. We part from Red Rabbit here and plan on making camp on the other side of the river. Oberon assures us it will be fine. Our date of destiny is right on time. With little or no surprise, we are attacked by the third of the famous Japanese ghost, Otsuya. This fight was more of a pain than anything.
And I would like to reiterate, that is not a cat.
I think this one is based around the fact that in the original story, the ghost kept visiting every night. Because actually, this is a story about this is a Japanese ghost story about necrophilia. I think I can sum this up pretty much. Basically, a widow dude saw beautiful women on the first night of Alma and was like, "I love you, come lay with me." And she was like, "Aight." And they did that for several nights until his neighbor got suspicious, looked down on him, and saw that he was owning a skeleton.
This seems to be a recurring theme with certain Japanese yokai stories. A guy sees a hot lady and is like, "You can come. Yeah, you're fine. You can come into my house." And then a neighbor or a traveling priest or something comes by and is like, "This man is shriveled. He has died."
After that, he goes to a priest and is all like, "You must resist her advances or you're gonna fucking die." Short story, he did not.
No, they're bad at that. They're really bad at that.
No. And ends up at her grave, coiled around, dead around her skeleton there. So it's just like, okay. So I'm pretty sure that was kind of the basis of the mechanics, because apparently that went on for quite a while. They would show up every night and leave before day.
Funnily enough, this is basically the same format as one of the more popular Jorogumo legends. It's just, like I said, instead of dying to a skeleton, it's the guy, jumps into this giant spider well. Or is pulled.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes he jumps.
Sometimes.
I thought of a terrible joke I will not bless chat with.
We actually did hit all 3 of the big famous Japanese ghost stories, which I found entertaining, but also very weirdly placed. They're kind of nothing fights, but they had interesting mechanics. I'm just like, huh.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a time filler. I guess we'll see if it wraps back around. I do think part of the purpose, because Muramasa notes, after every fight almost, he's just like, I wonder if it's supposed to be, relaying to us that maybe this Lostbelt's not as isolated as we think it is. But yeah.
Well, in a way. Well, it's not, because they talk about the clanless and how, I think they have talked about the clanless and how people have floated in. And in the loosest sense, you could consider Japanese ghosts a type of fairy, like yokai. I mean, there's also fucking I forgot the proper term for the spirits. What was it, yosei?
Yeah, yosei, bewitching spirit, usually translated as fairy. I was just looking it up.
Yeah, and while they do have their distinctions, they are kind of blurred together. There are beneficial yokai and whatnot, and and other stuff. So, in a loosest sense, I could see a Japanese ghost yokai being quote unquote qualifying for a fairy.
The word yosei, which literally means bewitching spirit, used to be actually refer to some sort of weird specific spirit type. Mm-hmm. Later, they basically used it as their a reverse loan word. They were like, yes, fairy. We'll just that's how they translate the word fairy. This is again why we talked about how yosei kishi got translated.
Mm-hmm.
Fairy knight is a decent translation, though not a literal one. It's a fairly direct, but not, again, literally, because otherwise they would be bewitching spirit warrior, chat. Don't let anybody say that it's literal. But yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here, and yeah, I kind of agree that yokai, certain kinds of them could definitely fit the fairy molds, so there's some back and forth in there.
Some back and forth there. So, we snag and talk about Artoria's food tank and how she survived with Rose's purge is at, actually, how do you pronounce this? How do you pronounce this, Omega? Tintagel.
Yes.
Ta
and ja. I know. Tintagel.
Tintagel.
Which is, by the way, where I've mentioned this before, but this is where King Arthur is always traditionally been considered to be born at Tintagel Castle, which is an island off Cornwall. And, fun fact, they have actually archaeologically found a castle, or the ruins of, like, a fortified structure from the roughly Arthurian period in history. So, neato. No guarantee you will roll Castoria if you stand in Tintagel Island, but shrug.
I also do note this. We tease Artoria a lot.
She's really easily teased.
It's great. I love it.
There is a reason why she has both a wide correction of blush sprites, but also the tooth mouth tooth.
The rage. Well, comical rage, I should say.
Yes. She has her anime, comedy anger, and then she just has her flat, I'm pissed.
Mm-hmm.
All of these get used a lot. Again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but Ayuko Asumi was not kidding when this is Nasu told her to basically start over with her characterization for this Artoria. She is truly, like, similar, but coming from a very different place, so almost all of her responses and lines are very different.
Did I mention this last time? I'm pretty sure I did, but it was like 2 weeks ago, so forgive me. But...
It's in your notes from 2 weeks ago, but that's why I wanted to remind chat. Like, we brought this up before, but it's really true.
Yeah, no, this is this is ordinary girl Artoria, which is really weird to think about, but basically all of our Artorias from now is, after, the weight of responsibility has fallen upon her shoulders and she's accepted it.
Even Lily has pulled the sword of selection.
Yes.
She's still inexperienced, but she understands I'm gonna be king someday.
Mm. We talk a little bit. Woodrose comes up and mentions how, he likes to act human and be all with manners, but we already know that's a fucking lie.
He is an animal man. Literally.
But we move on to some... Oh.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it is mentioned that he was responsible for the purge of Tintagel.
Yes. Da Vinci has a one-on-one with us and, talks about this because one of the things that Gens mentions about the Drake is they don't always drown you to their death. Sometimes they just, want to mate for a while because they don't want lovers, but they want babies. And if the Drake can't have children here, and even if they are imitating human society, that no Fae knows what babies are. That which means that humans actually have no natural means of reproduction here. That factory term just got a lot more real.
Yeah. Clearly whatever's going on with even the human production here, it is no longer in any way natural. I do still get the impression that, like, the people understand what fucking is. The Lostbelt is not explicit because this game's still rated T for teen, but, like, there is, discussions of romance. Obviously, Bogard was going to consummate his marriage with Mash, but yeah, they don't actually understand why people would be doing that, right?
Yes, it's just another imitation of human society.
That I can at least understand. Humans do be horny.
Yeah. So, Oberon does seem to be working with a script. The prophecy, as it seems, says that Norwich's bell will be the first to be rung, and that Norwich will be destroyed.
This is a case where I think I can pull out some future spoilers. In Act 2, we bring this back up to Oberon, and we discover that he has extra prophecy lines.
Mm.
So, Oberon is working with extra detail and seems to understand that Norwich is doomed. We will arrive to Norwich, we will defeat the calamity, but Norwich should be wiped out. In my notes, I put, this is the tricky thing about prophecy. That they have very strict strictures for things, and they must be done in certain orders. So Oberon is like, oh, don't worry about it. You guys will just show up in the right time, in the right place. And he just doesn't want to burden us with the idea that we might still not save this city.
I'm gonna save this city.
Yeah, we'd be doing that.
And with that, the section goes to an end, and we move on to the next one. Section 9, Norwich 1.
Yes, glorious Norwich, a city of industry.
Let's see here. I think this will probably be the last one for... Because it's like I say, we're already pushing 3 hours now.
Yeah, and it's
like
going to be... This is the last drop of Act 1.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot here.
There's a lot.
And it is already almost daily reset. But we'll get in there. I took a fairly decent amount of notes for me, considering I'm writing very expurgated. Though technically, I think for Act 2, my notes have started getting longer. But yeah, so Lucky, of course, is a lot more detail. So, Norwich, y'all.
So, I think this was like the first time I actually zoomed in on Norwich, and I love the map effects. You can actually see the black smoke swirling around Norwich on the map. I was like, oh, nice.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff with, like, the mist and fog and other, like, effects.
We start off just listening to some random street chatter. One thing that popped out is that there was an ocean liner named Inabamaru, and I was like, what? I guess it's not that weird, because apparently things float in, but just, what? It's very random.
The weird cultural cross-contamination is weird.
Wait, it's an actual ship. The Nippon Yusa Kaishi SS Nabamaru. It looks like it was a...
It's a famous ship. It's got there's a print of it in the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston I've just found.
Yeah. Interesting. I'll maybe look into that more later. But not right now. Yeah, so apparently that is something that already existed. Well, so, we learned that for about 1900 years, there were no iron weapons as the Queen forbade the production. Spriggan was able to convince Morgan to relent on the restriction. I believe this is talking about how they can be used to combat Moors and whatnot.
I do find this interesting, by the way. I think this came up earlier, but it comes up again here. But fairies are not allergic to cold iron, period, in this setting. They are harmed conceptually by iron weapons. So a sword of iron really fucking hurts for a fairy, but they can, like, use a ball-peen hammer if they need to.
Mm-hmm. So with that, Spriggan basically turned this port city into, a city of iron. And while Salisbury has freedom from human, in Norwich, all are equal under the laws of artistry. This has led to Fae exploiting humans and humans exploiting the Fae. Norwich has become the city of smithing and loose morals. Yeah.
Like, you thought Gloucester was where we invented capitalism? Nay, 'twas Norwich. And just like our current late-stage capitalism, they might get yeeted by climate change. I don't actually know if Nasi was thinking about that when he wrote that, but it is funny that Norwich is the most, like, earthly business city and is the first one that is possibly going to be fucking yeeted.
Mm-hmm. So it's time to split up again, gang, and this time it's our turn to take Da Vinci on a date. Da Vinci Onechan.
My little big sister.
So we look for information in the city on the Calamity and MASH, and we don't get a lot, but I do want to say the barber had some creepy shit to say.
I'm trying to remember what was the barber saying. I remember there's some disturbing stuff in this conversation, though. Cut our hair weird.
No. I kind of remember it. They're talking about how they can't leave, and they don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And because they lost host, and their wife gouges out her eyes every morning.
Yeah, that guy. Ugh. She doesn't want to see
and
the
they
calamity.
heal. Yes.
Ugh. People are weird.
People are weird.
Da Vinci, this town is weird.
When we
do learn
reconvene,
some stuff. We do learn some stuff.
We do learn some stuff, but once we return, once again, Artoria teasing is in full swing. But there's a bit of a commotion. It's the arrival of the Tamlin Galahad. Many are shaken. Not so much as us. But unfortunately, Gareth threatens to shank us.
Yeah, Gareth's a very loyal little dog knight. She threatened to shank me if I went over to the other Child of Prophecy's side.
Yep, because that's what people think of MASH as.
Yeah, and this is technically this was the note I wrote first, but this is immediately where I realized, you explain in detail a little bit later, but actually no, maybe not yet. We got some other stuff, but yeah, you say he's trying to set something up, yeah, so we will discuss it off and on, but I immediately picked up to what's going on here, and like, Spriggan's a wily old trickster, ain't he?
Yeah.
He's a wiggly one.
Yep. Unfortunately, MASH hasn't recovered from the Nameless Woods and doesn't remember us, even though she starts crying. Spriggan is clearly trying to set something up.
Yeah.
He basically whisks Mask away up to his castle where she will be, showed most hospitality and gracious. And in my head, I'm just thinking, he's trying to get a fucking playing card.
And he's obviously not as forward-facing friendly like, say, Aurora. And he's not as much of a clear motherfucker as what we've seen of, like, Woodwoes. Basically, he strikes me as kind of the same character archetype as Miran. Like, he knows what to play to public face and what to do behind closed doors, as you're about to discuss. Like, when we rush the stage as a lord of a fairy clan, he probably would have been within his rights as far as the other fairies and humans are concerned to try and shank us right there. But he understands Mash would probably not go along with that.
No.
So he doesn't do that.
Instead, he whisks Mask away, he says some choice words to the guards, and after we get away, guess what? It is time to fight the authority.
Yeah, he tries to get us fucking beat up by cops in a dark alley.
There are too many of them, though, and unfortunately it looks like they're gonna get reinforcements, but alas, it is not. It is a group of MPs under the Count's authority, and the guards have to back off before causing an incident. We do not know who this mysterious Count is, but they want to meet us! And actually, now that I think about it, wasn't it someone named the Count taking over businesses?
Yep, the Count took over Knockers, which was Spriggan's business line, I think.
Yeah.
Bought out the store in Gloucester. Very successful.
Mm-hmm. And so we go to meet this mysterious Count, and it's fucking Pepe! Let's fucking go!
You thought it was a Count. Kono Pepe da! It was I, Pepe. Oh, I've missed you so much, my boy.
Oh man, just seeing the Pepe face, he's just like, it's me! And you're just like, yes!
Oh,
I love that face
God.
so much.
I'm just imagining the master just being like, oh my God, Pepe, you won't believe this place. There was some fairies and they were really strong, and then I lost my memory, and then I lost Mash, and then I found Mash, but she still lost her memory.
Yeah, apparently he's come into, wealth and power and, built up a brain to take out knockers in only a month. Unfortunately, the venture spills Pepe's things and explains why he's here. To kill Barrel.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's simple. We kill the barrel good. I didn't realize that capitalism was one of Pepe's hidden Buddhist superpowers.
Well, it makes sense. He is a human from proper human history with a bunch of, proper human history knowledge. He just basically did the isekai trope of like, I know modern shit, and applied it.
Well, and also, we do at least know, out of a lot of the cryptors, Pepe was definitely the one who is actually, like, conscious of, like, fashion trends and stuff, right? He actually keeps up with culture, I think. And so, it was easy for him to, like, work that into, to make ideas work.
I do want to say, like, Pepe is very insistent that we're enemies, but, like, almost at no point have I ever felt like he was an enemy, capital E enemy. But it still sounds wild to see all these former enemies come to our aid here. So Pepe gives us the lowdown and we figure out that Spriggan is a land shark. He has made all the people pay rent on the land, and then before the calamity came, sold it all. Now he's waiting for the calamity to kill them all, so he can claim the land again. Spriggan has used the prophecy to his advantage. This also kind of explains why people are so disinclined to leave. Their land and purpose are here, and they don't want to give that up.
Yeah. I wrote in my notes here, I don't actually know if this is, like, Nasu was being topical, because this was technically being written in the lead up to, like, the pandemic and stuff, but it's very funny how much, like, Spriggan does fit a lot of themes that are kind of on people's minds these days, right? Like, he's misusing police authority. I put in my notes here, Spriggan's the worst kind of fairy, a landlord. And then I also put in my notes, duh, he's the Lord of the Earth Clan, duh. He's the Lord of the Land. But yeah, no, it's very interesting because, like, Spriggan really do be that guy. Like, he's not enough of a problem that we just immediately, like, fuck that guy, bang. He's not like Woodwoes, right? Like, we hear, if we were to meet Woodwoes, he would immediately try to punch us. We would have to punch him. That is also assuming that Castoria saw Woodwoes face to face. She wouldn't just go all Kill Bill siren on him. I'm not certain she wouldn't. That girl's got a temper. But, like, Spriggan is just, like, he's so normally a bad guy. Like, such a normal bad man. If all this supernatural shit wasn't happening, we would be so, like, on top of his ass for all this shit. Fucking sending cops after us, cheating people out of their land. What a sucker. What a fuckboy.
So, what Spriggan has basically done is pull the asshole move and has trapped Mash in this castle so she won't learn the truth about the area. And unfortunately for us, it's super heavily guarded, so we won't be able to meet up with Mash at all. I believe they call it the Vault Castle.
Yes. Not that we're not, again, we're the master. We have a one-track mind. I'm pretty sure Pepe has to talk us out of just being like, oh, she's at his castle? Cool, that's where I'm going. He's like, no, don't do that. That would be dumb. And I'm like, I'm still thinking.
But I don't remember if we, like, do we crash for the night here?
Yeah, basically we've been traveling through most of the day. We have our info gathering trip, and then we spend the rest of the day basically talking to Pepe, and then we pass out for a night, and we begin this next segment on our next morning.
Yep, with the Pepperon Golem, much like back in Babylonia, where Gil just got us some fucking hands to fight for goods. We just get to slap some of Pepe's golems around and just get loot. This was Pepe's way of blowing away some of our worries of loot and combat. And we take a moment to learn about Pepe, or rather, Myorenji Aru. They come from a long line of Shogendo practitioners of Tingudo, the way of the Tengu. Pepe was talented, but their family expelled them, so Pepe killed them all and left. Da Vinci asks why they did that, and Pepe responds with, I thought it was for the best. Apparently the founder of the sect was able to form a connection to Sanat Komura on Mount Karuma, which I believe means he gained eternal youth or became a superhuman. I'm not entirely sure. I do wonder how Helena, Ushi, and Kichihogan would feel about this.
Yeah, sadly, Pepe is not summonable, so we can't get any overlap here, but yeah. There's definitely some interesting kind of back and forth about that, but at the very least, I assume that means he would have unlocked all, I think it's 6 of the higher powers in Buddhism?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I assume that means that if he made contact with Sana Kurama, he would have gained all of the powers. So yeah, I think superhuman would be the appropriate one.
And like I said, I tried understanding what Sana Kurama is. It's a little vague.
Yeah, and it's been slightly repurposed. Like you brought up about Helena. That's because her philosophy or her almost religion of theosophy kind of like took a lot of these Eastern religion concepts and kind of applied them to a weird syncretic mishmash of Western occultism. But yeah, there'd be some very interesting stuff in there.
So Pepe was a direct descendant of the founder, so he had no problem. But other children were kidnapped, and if they couldn't make it, were basically tossed out with their destiny twisted to basically fall into hell. And Pepe decided to kill them because they were his family.
Basically, Pepe comes from a clan of mages. They suck.
Mm-hmm. They're
mages. They suck.
Pretty much.
As far as I can tell, this, it's probably based on some appropriate legends of, Yamabushi and mountain sages who, study so long they become Tengu. But the specific phrase Tengu-do I've never seen before. Shugendo is an actual, form of aesthetic Buddhism that is practiced in Japan and involves, I mentioned before, Yamabushi mountain men, basically. It's interesting. You just know Nasu's just, digging up all his esoteric Buddhism facts.
Let's see here. So Pepe has messaged 3 of the Rokujinsu. Yes, it's 6 because the Roku. Rokujinsu by the time he was 10. Apparently the norm was 1 in 100 years. He tells us that his 3 powers were Jinsokutsu, superhuman speed, Taijutsu, mind reading, and Ronjitsu, knowing how long your lifespan will be and what your fate will be.
Yeah, I made sure to clarify this, but you got it as full. I basically put a note down. He has 3 of the 6 powers. He has the ability to become speed. He can read minds, and specifically they call that knowing your own lifespan and fate, but a better way to put that is understanding your own dharma, right? Like your own place in the cosmic world.
But after a huge meal, we finally get something that I really need to know. Clarification. We think it's been 16 days since we arrived, but actually it's been 26. We spent 10 days unconscious.
Yeah, this is a big one. I think we were discussing this a couple weeks ago before we got to this point. I was like, are we missing some time? Is some time missing? Yeah, we missed some time. This is important. We're on a schedule.
Yeah. Oh. But before turning in, Oberon worries about us and asks, does MASH have a role greater than, being the savior of a world? And my immediate response was, yes. Being the servant of the last master of humanity, my precious Kohai, and bearer of the shield that gathers heroes. We've already borne the weight of the world many times over. That's literally old hat now.
Also, to put a point in this, MASH already saved the world. She, traded her life for mine and ate, Ars Salmonus with the, literal light of 1,000 suns or some shit. Basically everything from this point is that girl's earned retirement. I know she's only 16, but she gets to retire now, okay? You don't always get to come straight back from your heroic sacrifice, y'all.
No, so I was just, but Oberon basically tells us that, at some point we just need to, trust MASH and believe that she can take care of herself. Also, at this point, I think this was the point where I started to notice that Oberon's sprite has a variety of instincts that just hang out on his finger. It might have shown up earlier, but I think this is the first point I actually noticed it.
Oh, I should point this out. Axe asking why Foe didn't get superpowers in this Lostbelt. It's because he didn't come. He did not want to go to a place with Morgan.
Wait, who didn't get?
Foe. He was asking why. Why didn't Foe get really powerful here? Foe honestly actually wouldn't necessarily get really powerful. I don't know if there's a lot of comparison going on here. Not a lot of people seem to be resenting and resenting not, but also Foe literally refused to come with us to this Lostbelt, probably because of Morgan.
I don't know if it's because of Morgan, but
or
honestly,
maybe Foe just hates fairies not that much.
I think it's the whole thing. Yeah, it's Morgan, but also it's this weird ass Britain. It's this weird ass fucking thing.
Technically, Merlin is here in some form because he talked to us in a dream, or we talked to someone else in a dream,
or talked to someone in a dream. Also, there's something really weird here. This is a slight spoiler, but I did go to Camelot, and there's something very interesting written on the gates that usually is written somewhere else. I'm just wait a minute.
Also, yes, no, Cath Pulag is a Welsh myth.
Yes.
It means, Cath Pulag means Pulag's cat, and is a fearsome creature. So, yeah, there's definitely, Foe has a reason why you don't want to be riding. Either nobody would notice Foe at all, or, he would start getting, juiced. He'd start juicing.
Alternatively, he would have to punch everyone. But yeah, no. Oberon does a good job of having these little chats with us. And yeah, I don't think I noticed it until I read that note you wrote. But yeah, no, Oberon does have different sprites with different bugs. I don't know if they mean anything yet, but like he will have different little buggos for different moods and needs.
Mm-hmm. So
also, yes, sorry, somebody in chat said foe is a cat. Yes, the name Cath Pulag, Cath is the same as Kate She or Kate Sith. It means cat in Welsh. Foe is obviously not literally a cat, but he is called a cat in myths.
So, moving on, the day comes over, the calamity has begun, and we didn't even get to eat breakfast.
You never get to eat breakfast.
But after hearing those gooey, crunchy sounds from the moors, though, I'm not sure I could eat.
In my notes, in all caps, I wrote this as, "It's dark and gooey again! Let me off Mr. Nasu's wild ride!" He did not get off Mr. Nasu's wild ride.
Nope.
I'm not lying, though. This is... I know Fate and even FGO itself, but Fate in general has a long history of being dark and gooey. We went back. We're going back to our roots, and I'm still not happy. I'm never happy when it gets dark and gooey. Just those scorched sounds. Ugh.
So we gotta help. Gareth is a little bit scared, though. So Oberon gives us a pep talk, complete with uplifting music. But after that, we go back to the oh shit, what's this OST shift? It's very dark and expectant, like something is about to happen, but it's not good.
Yeah, this is what I was referring earlier. You wrote this note. Like, there's something about this second map theme, right? Like, it's a little melancholic, a little warning. Like, it's building tension. It's not the exact same format, but it's similar to the way that, say, the second LB2 theme, that's the Ragnarok one with the, like, Gregorian chanting type stuff. That always sticks to me because it's just like, oh no. As I put in my notes, shit, they hit me with the OST shift again.
Mm-hmm. So
a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff happens. We are battling Moors, trying to get people to evacuate and escape. But there's too many Moors, though. And Muramasa is about to take the hit and head off on his own to deal with it, but Mash leaps from the castle wall to take care of them. Spriggan cannot keep our Kohai from deploying.
Mash was never one to run away, especially not now as Tamlin Galahad.
We keep on fighting, though, and Muramasa, you looking kind of out of focus there. Oh, it's because I've been burning my life force into magical energy. Poignant reminder, we're actually a very shit mage. We only can do that because we have Mystic Code support. Also, apparently we have vitality boosters. It must be like a Jinlin Strauss on Magic Crack.
Just get raw life energy infused up in there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there is something stag-like and max creepy out over the harbor. Oh, we ferry Eldritch now. It's too big, it's too strong, and we gotta flee. It immediately makes me think of the Horgon from Old Myth, except dark and creepy.
Yeah, this thing's name is censored later, so there's something going on here. But in my notes, this was written down in two phases. One, because I like themes and rhyming, and Doom came to Norwich, as it so often does. But also, discussing this thing's design, I wrote, "Welcome to the Stag Fields, motherfucker! You thought it was all Tinkerbell up in here? This shit is Eldritch!" Because it's gooey and goopy, and he's got big horns, and it's just, on the one hand, I'm excited because I'm like, yeah, that's right, fairies are freaky, but also I'm like, fairies are freaky! No. Let me out.
So we rewind a little bit and hear about what Mash decided from the narrator. She jumps from the council walls, even though Spriggan tried to keep her trapped there. As we mentioned, whatever that thing's name was has been hidden. Oh, it's a creepy hand tree now, burn it!
Yeah. Oh, you missed your own bullet point here. Because we have a moment where Artoria is like, okay, I gotta run away. I'm just gonna do what I do when I run away. And she turns to us, and this is when somebody earlier made that joke. We go full Leroy Jenkins. We're just like, it's not chicken, it's Kohai, but we're like, fuck it. We ball.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did skip it, but Artoria has many thoughts. Too many thoughts. But she sees Mash fighting towards that calamity. We follow her, throwing caution to the wind. We look at the logic and we scream, so what? Oh god, I love this moment. Then there was Mash with the narrator, then the creepy hand. And once at a time, we meet up once again with Mash, and it is time to defy prophecy. Times Lucky has cried, too.
Yeah, this did not get me in a tearful mood. I was just way up top of my game. Like, literally, my next note here is, Grand Battle, let's go! This is what I've been waiting for! Like, this is a big moment of turnaround, where we're just like, you know what? Fuck fate, fuck you, giant hand man. This, by the way, is why I called this guy a gloom hands looking motherfucker. He really does look like that, which is funny because this story on Sprite is 2 years old, you know? But it do be like that. Also, hey, fun fact, when you go into this actual battle here, your lineup of all those 3 support servants, they all have MP themes, by the way. Mash plays Lord Camelot, Da Vinci has her own theme, and Muramasa obviously is still using Unalloyed Bladeworks. Not really relevant, just kind of a neat detail.
Mm-hmm. I have a question here, because I thought I saw something. Could you fill your backline with servants in that fight? I forgot.
Yes.
Okay.
You could have. I don't think you needed to.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
And I was about to say, like, wait a minute, because I've had more servants in that fight? And I was like, and it's just like, I could have. But no, I just did it with the 3 supports. But I had to use a leyline stone only because the calamity decided to double crit 2 turns in a row.
Yeah.
I couldn't take that much damage.
Yeah, I didn't super need them. But you got double crit. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
You saying that you didn't add anybody to your back row explains to me why you had to use a stone. Because my notes were, 1, yeah, I know we could use other servants, because in my notes I said, oh, light of the world's end, give me a bonus! That's because Double X got the kill, technically.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, no. You don't really need this. Like, if you use some proper Mystic Codes and skill usage and you're more disciplined about it, you can probably do it with just the 3 supports without even...
I mean, I did. I got down... I remember this. I got down to 30k on the last pip.
How fast did you go through those first 2 bars? Do you
Pretty
remember?
quick.
Yeah, because I was about to say, like, honestly, if it weren't for the fact that I think he has some defensive buffs and stuff on his 3rd bar, I probably would have 3-turned this guy. Because those first 2 bars were immediately gone, 1 and then 1, with just some NP uses. And I just put this in my notes, like, this Calamity's a chump. I have eaten, like, 5 Apocalypse monsters stronger than him.
Yeah.
Like, getting rando crit, I understand, and this is the start of a lot of the curse bullshit they're going to keep doing to us in a boss form. But, like, it is very interesting. This definitely does kind of feel like they didn't actually plan this to be the break. Like, this is a climax, but I don't know if this fight is actually tough enough to be a section ender normally, but they needed to do something with all this printer paper and all these banners.
Well, like I said, we had the climactic meet up with MASH, and this was supposed to be, you know, a prophesized doom, so...
And this Axe is asking, like, is this enough text for, like, a couple of Lostbelts? No, not yet. We're still only on Section 10. Even with these being dense, we're maybe, like, at a shortish Lostbelt worth of text, maybe. Like one of our shorter story chapters. This one is the longest one in Act 1, though. I think this thing's, like, 9 pips. It's long. Because there's still some, after the battle, there's some fucking, no battle pips.
We slapped that calamity. We win. Everyone finally gets to meet up. Bam, instant friendship between MASH and Artoria. And I'm like, yes.
I put in my notes, my Kohai is learning because Da Vinci tries to prank her and she's just like, wait a second. You're fucking with me, aren't you, Da Vinci? Good girl, MASH.
But wait, it's not over. Oh, what is that ring of light? That's not good. Is that the water mirror?
Yeah, I just put in my notes this phrase, I do not like this ring of light. I don't know if it's a deliberate, but it reminds me of some other rings of light that I have seen that I do not enjoy.
I don't know. Like, the thing that really stuck out with me was just the water sound and how it looked over like water reflective on top. That's why I'm assuming it's the water mirror.
Yeah.
And
well, it's somebody in a second will tell us it's the water mirror.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no. By the way, this effect though, talking about special effects, this was sick. They do this like build up, and like you said, there's that water effect, and there's kind of like a drop, like the sky becomes water, and it all crashes down, and then we're just like, what?
Yep. And it comes down towards us, but MASH pushes us out of the way and disappears. Man, it was a wild scene, and it's quickly explained that was the water mirror, and it's a teleportation spell. Wait, who is that talking? It's Happy Cat, MASH's manager, huh? Not fairy godmother? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I put in my notes here, Habetrot refused to say she's MASH's fairy godmother. I know your role.
She's going to join the team until MASH and us are reunited. Does she ship us? I think she does.
Yeah, it seems so. But yeah, she clarifies that basically she straight up tells us, don't worry, MASH isn't dead. She just got teleported because that's what Morgan's water mirror does. She just takes the calamities and shoves them somewhere else.
Good.
This is where I start to question Morgan's management a little bit. Like, she seemed pretty on the ball, but this is definitely where I go like, hold on a second. Is that really the most productive thing you could do about this? You're just gonna move them somewhere? This comes back later, chat. I don't have to wonder about this for too much, but this is definitely, I think, kind of like where you go a question mark of like, she does what to calamities? Where are they going? What are they doing?
We find out, so after that, post-calamity, Norwich is going wild. We are winning just a little bit too much. But we have to keep moving forward. We are going to use this chance to ring the bell of pilgrimage in Norwich. Something that Spriggan is all for letting us ring the bell, but Artoria can't do it. She feels too weak and as if she didn't accomplish anything. Spriggan goes, heh, and mentions the Saxons, though. We cut to Da Vinci giving a look, which lets you know something weird was said. The Saxon invasion was definitely proper human history facing, so how does Spriggan know of it?
Yeah.
Maybe Morgan told him? Bearable? I don't know, but
yeah, I don't know.
Something is weird.
I do want to point out earlier in my notes, I put this down as the fairies have discovered revolution, because that's kind of what's going on in the streets of Norwich. They're just like, what's this Spriggan man? You stand in our way? Well, we'll flip you over. And Spriggan, of course, does what every Weasley guy does, and he's like, yes, I was on your side the entire time. Definitely was on your side. Don't worry about it. You can do whatever you want.
I'll worry about it.
Oh, you don't want to do that? Cool, I support that too. It would be dumb if you rang the bell.
Oh, hey, Morgan finally got us that invitation to her tea party. She sent quite the spicy letter.
We have both of us have this just straight up in our notes. Hey, she finally got to invite her to her tea party.
Yeah, if I remember correct, I think Morgan said it's all like, whether you actually did something or not, you should be rewarded. So come on over. And Artoria's just like,
come on down.
But basically, with this situation, each side now has to prove their own justice. Now, politically speaking, neither can make an open move without setting some groundwork first. Which, by the way, that means Spriggan's move to let us ring the fuck bell was a fucking trap.
Yeah. If we'd rung the bell, we would have, especially because of the note you're about to bring up, Tamlin Gareth was going to come pick us up. If we'd rung the bell, we would have immediately been made enemies and probably would have been incinerated, along with large chunks of Norwich.
Mm-hmm.
Also, at some point in here, I have this note. Oberon does tell us that the letter of the prophecy said Norwich would be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
He elaborates on it much later, but I just, want to say in my notes, I make my own fate, bitch. Also, it's fair. We are a literal outside source. We have, nothing going on there. But yeah, So
we're going to be escorted to Camelot by Tamlin Gareth, and that means it's an excellent time to learn about the Doggo Knights.
Spoilers, we will. Not this episode, though. We'll talk about that later.
Meanwhile, at the den of actual evil, Beryl pretends to be a fuckboy.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't got anything much more to say about that, man.
I do have a couple notes about this conversation, though. I think there's a couple of very interesting things here that people want to note for later. One.
Okay.
Very interesting, from this conversation with Tamlin Tristan, Habetrot seems to understand how the water mirror works better than Tamlin Tristan, despite the fact that that's Morgan's adopted daughter and who's supposed to inherit her magecraft. Tristan doesn't really... She thinks that MASH may have been, destroyed, She doesn't understand it's a teleportation spell straight up. Whereas Habetrot is very explicitly like, yeah, it's the water mirror. Don't worry about it. Beryl also, I think, is smart here, where he goes, no body, no death. And I'll be sure to remember that for your corpse, Home Slice. No body, not dead. The main thing I think there is that this means that there's stuff that even Tamlin Tristan doesn't know. And also, Habetrot knows things. What things? Many things.
Well, Habetrot does seem, I guess, unusually attached to MASH for some odd reason.
Yeah.
Like, she took, one look at the crones, all like, oh, far out.
She's like, got that one. That's it.
Mine.
Also, I can, because we're talking about part 1 stuff. I'm not 100% sure when this will come back, but I'm fairly certain Habetrot is the one who secured the Black Barrel, because she drifts down after MASH and Bogart jump, and she's deliberately out of scene, so we'll see if that one slaps back around.
Makes sense. I can believe that.
There's and when we actually start getting to Act 2, Habenan continues to be an interesting source of exposition. And there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. But yeah, we're almost at 4 hours. It's almost midnight. But I think that is a good point to wrap up. And we'll have to figure out where our point is later in Act 2 as we go on. Lucky's writing notes up to section 12. I have notes all the way up to where I left off was at the start of section 14. So there's a lot of stuff. Even in this little chunk of Lostbelt, there is... Hold on, how long are my notes? Let's see. Section starts at page... What is it? 31? We haven't deleted any of our old notes yet, so...
I think actually once I get done with this, I'm going to just make a copy of this and save this for posterity.
Yeah, to 34. So I have 3 pages of notes just in section 11 to the start of 14. This is also why I said that I think my notes are getting more expansive. It's big. There's a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah, I'm at 3 pages myself. Total.
No. And you're taking the expanded notes too. So there's a lot here. There's a lot of text here. It's very big and dense. And there's a lot of there's old characters we get into, and there's also new characters introduced. So I'll be very eager to talk about Act 2 next week. But yeah, it's probably a good time to outro. And there it is, our compilated thoughts on Lostbelt 6, Act 1, Drop 1, whatever you want to call it, at almost 4 hours, just like some of the time references I made in there. Hope you guys had fun with that. Sorry about the audio levels not being consistent, but it's hard for me to cobble together multiple recordings and make sure everything audio-wise is leveled out, but I know you guys like it a little louder, so we're trying to bump some of that up. No idea what format or how long the next bit will take. I'm going to have to look at the audio slice for Act 2 and see where that goes. But I'm pretty sure there's crossover with the stream that's like 8 hours long. So, and that's the one that I don't have my end of the recorded audio because that was last year and my computer would have exploded trying to save and export 8 hours of audio. So that's the one we're going to have to get a little weird with. We'll see how it goes. But I will continue to work on that one in the coming months and see if we can get it out the door. But hopefully you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like the video, hit your comments, subscribe and stuff. And we'll see you guys next time. The audio version of this is going to go on Patreon. So you can get that for as little as $1 a month. And that does mean that at this point, real quick, I do want to shout out a couple of our patrons before I show you the credit slide and get out of here. So, shout out to our patrons like Adam Harp, Lex G, Call Me Zed, Carlos, Dragon, JDV9000, Chris Starlight, Legendary Boss Hunter, Liam Kessler, Rise of Kenji, Rogue Roman, Charvor, some guy named Bob, and Varian the Crow. If you like Green Do Want to see some more, consider supporting us on Patreon. Hope everybody had a pleasant Thanksgiving. And that's gonna be that.